The call came on a Tuesday afternoon while Angus MacGyver was elbow-deep in a prototype water filtration system for the Phoenix Foundation. His secretary's voice crackled through the intercom with unusual urgency. "Mac, there's a General Hammond on the line. Says it's a matter of national security." MacGyver wiped his hands on a shop rag, eyebrows raised. He'd consulted for various government agencies over the years. Usually when something had gone spectacularly wrong and conventional solutions had failed. But he'd never heard of General Hammond. "This is MacGyver," he said, picking up the phone. "Mr. MacGyver, I'm General George Hammond, United States Air Force. I'm calling from a facility that doesn't officially exist regarding a problem that officially hasn't happened." The general's voice carried the weight of a man who'd seen too much and was running out of options. "Your expertise in unconventional problem-solving has been highly recommended. I need you at Cheyenne Mountain Complex in Colorado Springs. Tomorrow." "What kind of problem are we talking about, General?" "The kind I can't discuss over the phone. I can tell you this much, we've encountered technology that defies conventional analysis. Our best scientists have been working on it for 3 weeks. It's been suggested that someone with your creative approach might see what they've missed." MacGyver's curiosity ignited despite his instinct to decline military work. Technology that defied analysis? That usually meant something genuinely fascinating. "I don't work with weapons, General. That's non-negotiable. I'm aware of your principles, Mr. MacGyver. I wouldn't have called if I thought you'd be comfortable with what we do here. But this isn't about weapons, it's about understanding something we found. Something that could change everything we know about human history." 12 hours later, MacGyver stood at a security checkpoint 28 levels beneath Cheyenne Mountain, his Phoenix Foundation credentials being scrutinized by an airman who looked like he could bench press a Buick. The young man finally nodded and handed back the ID. "You're cleared for level 19, sir. Dr. Jackson is waiting to escort you." The corridors were gray concrete and flickering fluorescent lights, standard military architecture designed for function over comfort. MacGyver followed the airman through a maze of turns until they reached a checkpoint where a slender man with glasses and earnest blue eyes waited. He wore civilian clothes and had the distracted air of someone perpetually lost in thought. "MacGyver?" "Daniel Jackson." The handshake was firm despite the academic appearance. "I'm the archaeologist on SG-1. I've read about your work. The thing with the missile in Alaska was brilliant. Using a hockey stick and a road flare to redirect the gyroscope. That's the kind of thinking we need." "SG-1?" MacGyver asked as they walked. Daniel's expression shifted, a mixture of excitement and the burden of classified knowledge. "Stargate Command's flagship team. We explore. I can't say more until you're in the briefing room with General Hammond." They descended another level via elevator. When the doors opened, MacGyver found himself facing something that made his engineer's brain stutter. A massive circular ring stood upright on a platform, maybe 20 feet in diameter, covered in strange symbols. The metal had an otherworldly sheen, and the craftsmanship was unlike anything in his experience. Around it, levels of catwalks and control stations suggested this wasn't just an artifact, it was operational technology. "Impressive, isn't it?" Daniel said quietly. "We found it in 1928 at Giza. Took us until 1945 to figure out it was a transportation device. Another 50 years to make it work." MacGyver's mind raced through the implications. Transportation to where? The symbols looked vaguely like constellations but arranged in patterns that suggested coordinates rather than decoration. Before he could ask the 1,000 questions flooding his thoughts, a door opened and a stocky man in BDUs emerged with 3 others. The leader had gray hair, a lean build, and eyes that had seen combat up close. He moved with the casual confidence of someone who'd survived more firefights than most soldiers ever faced. "Dar. Jackson, this our civilian miracle worker." "Colonel O'Neill, this is Angus MacGyver," Daniel said. Mac, this is Colonel Jack O'Neill, he leads SG-1. That's Major Samantha Carter, our astrophysicist, and TLC, our cultural specialist. MacGyver shook hands with Carter, her grip was strong, her eyes sharp with scientific curiosity. TLC was an imposing figure, easily 6'2", with a gold symbol embedded in his forehead and a bearing that suggested warrior aristocracy from a culture MacGyver couldn't place. Indeed, TLC said, his voice resonant. General Hammond speaks highly of your unconventional methods. Let's see if he lives up to the hype, O'Neill said, not unkindly. Follow me, MacGyver. Time to see what you're really made of. They led him through another security door into a laboratory that looked like an archaeological site had collided with a physics department. Ancient stone fragments surrounded modern analysis equipment. And in the center, on a titanium examination table, sat a crystalline cube roughly the size of a softball. It pulsed with a faint inner light, colors shifting through the spectrum in patterns that almost seemed intentional. We found this in a temple on P3 or 233, Carter explained, noticing MacGyver's focus on the artifact. That's a planet designation. The Stargate connects to thousands of worlds across the galaxy. MacGyver processed this carefully. Stargate. Thousands of worlds. Galaxy. Either he'd stumbled into the most elaborate classified project in human history, or he was being tested for clearance into something genuinely paradigm-shattering. The cube's light patterns suggested the latter. For 3 weeks, Carter continued, we've scanned this with everything, X-ray crystallography, electromagnetic resonance, quantum tunneling microscopy. It's crystalline technology, not mineral. The lattice structure rearranges in response to stimulus, but we can't figure out the interface protocol. Translation, O'Neill added, we can't turn it on, and we're pretty sure it's important. MacGyver circled the table slowly, studying the cube without touching it. The light patterns weren't random, they repeated every 47 seconds with slight variations. Musical, almost. What happens when you try to interact with it? Nothing, Carter admitted with visible frustration. No buttons, no panels, no obvious access points. The crystal itself is harder than diamond but not brittle. We've tried electrical current, temperature variations, specific light wavelengths. Sound? MacGyver asked. Carter blinked. Sound. The light pulses have rhythm. Patterns. Like it's waiting for a response. MacGyver finally touched the cube gently. It was cool, almost unnaturally so, and the vibration he felt wasn't mechanical, it was harmonic resonance. Do you have a tuning fork? And maybe a glass of water? O'Neill and Carter exchanged glances. That's it, the colonel said. Tuning fork and water. We've got billion-dollar equipment here. Sometimes the simplest approach works best, Colonel. This cube is trying to communicate. We just need to speak its language. General Hammond's voice came through an intercom MacGyver hadn't noticed. Let him try, Colonel. That's why he's here. If you want to see more characters enter different universes, hit that subscribe button and drop the name of a character and the universe you'd want to see them in down in the comments below. Indeed. Daniel handed MacGyver a tuning fork from a drawer of miscellaneous tools. This lab clearly accommodated unconventional thinking. MacGyver struck it against the table edge and held it near the cube. The 440 Hz tone rang through the lab. The cube's light patterns shifted, accelerating. He held the vibrating fork to the cube's surface. The crystal sang. Harmonics filled the room, not just sound but light translating frequency into color. The cube's surfaces began to separate along invisible seams, unfolding like an intricate puzzle box. Inside, a smaller crystalline matrix glowed with steady amber light. How did you? Carter breathed, stepping closer. It's ancient technology, Daniel said suddenly, recognition lighting his face. The ancients were the first evolution of humanity. They built the Stargates millions of years ago before ascending to a higher plane of existence. They thought in terms of harmony, balance, universal frequencies. MacGyver watched the cube complete its transformation. Then they'd design interfaces based on natural laws, resonance, wavelength, mathematical constants expressed as physical phenomena. Not buttons and switches. Pure interaction with fundamental forces. TLC inclined his head with something that might have been respect. You possess wisdom, MacGyver of Earth. The amber light coalesced into a holographic projection above the cube, star charts, gate addresses, and what looked like technical schematics for technology MacGyver couldn't begin to identify. But the principle was clear: this was a library. A teacher. A gift from beings who'd mastered technology by understanding the universe's natural harmonies. O'Neill whistled low. Okay, I'm impressed. Carter, can you? Already recording everything, she confirmed, fingers flying over a laptop. This is incredible. These are gate addresses we've never seen, planets not in our database. General Hammond's voice returned. Outstanding work, Mr. MacGyver. Colonel O'Neill, bring him to the briefing room. I believe we have an offer to make our new consultant. As they filed out of the lab, Daniel fell into step beside MacGyver. How did you know? About the resonance. Everything in the universe vibrates at specific frequencies, MacGyver explained. If you're advanced enough to build a galaxy-spanning transportation network, you design your technology to work with those natural principles, not against them. Plus, the light patterns had rhythm. Rhythm is just organized vibration. I figured the cube was literally showing us what frequency it needed. You're going to fit in great here, Daniel said with genuine warmth. MacGyver glanced back at the Stargate dominating the gate room below, that massive ring promising access to thousands of worlds, ancient civilizations, and dangers he couldn't yet imagine. His hands weren't meant for weapons, but they'd built enough solutions from spare parts and scientific principles to last 3 lifetimes. The galaxy, he was beginning to understand, had a lot of problems that needed solving. And General Hammond clearly believed MacGyver was exactly the kind of unconventional thinker those problems required. The briefing room was all business, a rectangular table surrounded by chairs, a projected screen on one wall, and the unmistakable weight of classified information hanging in the air like static before a storm. MacGyver sat between Daniel and Major Carter, facing General Hammond at the head of the table. Colonel O'Neill leaned back in his chair with studied casualness that didn't quite hide his assessment of the civilian in their midst. TLC stood near the door, silent and watchful. Hammond slid a folder across the table. Before we proceed, Mr. MacGyver, you need to sign this non-disclosure agreement. What you've seen today is classified at the highest levels. What you're about to learn goes considerably further. MacGyver scanned the document, standard government boilerplate with teeth sharp enough to put him in federal prison for multiple lifetimes if he talked. He'd signed similar agreements before, though never for anything involving interstellar travel and ancient crystalline computers. He signed. Good. Hammond nodded to Carter, who dimmed the lights. The projection screen flickered to life with an image of the Stargate, then footage of the ring activating, 7 triangular chevrons locking in sequence, then an explosive vortex of energy erupting outward before settling into a shimmering vertical pool of liquid light. The Stargate uses 7 symbols to create a wormhole connecting 2 points in space, Hammond explained. 6 symbols determine the destination coordinates, the 7th is the point of origin. We can dial over 1,000 addresses currently in our database, each one leading to a different planet. MacGyver leaned forward, watching the recorded footage of SG team stepping through the event horizon and vanishing. You're literally walking through a wormhole. The energy requirements must be enormous. The gate draws power from a device called a DHD, dial-home device, Carter said, pulling up schematics. It's a control interface that taps zero-point energy from subspace. We're still reverse engineering the physics, but essentially it creates a stable Einstein-Rosen bridge between 2 points separated by thousands of light-years. We've been exploring the Gate network for nearly 2 years, Hammond continued. And we've discovered we're not alone out there. Not by a long shot. The screen changed to surveillance footage of humanoid figures in ornate armor carrying staff weapons. MacGyver recognized military formation and training even in alien soldiers. Then the image zoomed to show their eyes glowing with an unnatural golden light. The Goa'uld, Daniel said quietly, his voice carrying both academic fascination and deep anger. Parasitic organisms that take human hosts. They're the dominant power in this galaxy, and they're the reason the Stargate was buried for 5,000 years. They ruled ancient Earth as gods, Ra, Apophis, Hathor. They seeded humans across thousands of worlds as slave populations and worshippers. MacGyver felt his stomach tighten. Slavery. False gods. Are the hosts, can they be freed? Sometimes, O'Neill said, his casual demeanor evaporating. If you catch it early enough. But most have been blended with the symbiote for years, decades. The host consciousness is suppressed, trapped inside their own body while the Goa'uld uses them. Killing the snake usually means killing the host. The screen showed a new image, a snake-like creature with a lamprey mouth full of teeth. MacGyver had seen a lot in his years with the Phoenix Foundation, but this was a new category of nightmare. They take hosts for several reasons, Carter explained. The symbiote provides enhanced strength, rapid healing, and extended life. In return, the Goa'uld gets access to human creativity and adaptability, which they lack genetically. They also have access to genetic memory. Knowledge passed down from previous Goa'uld. There's also the Jaffa, TLC said, speaking for the first time since they'd entered the briefing room. He stepped forward into the light, and MacGyver noticed the gold symbol on his forehead with new understanding. Humans modified by the Goa'uld to serve as incubators for their larvae. I was first primed to the system Lord Apophis until I betrayed him to help Colonel O'Neill and his team. My people have been enslaved for millennia, believing the Goa'uld to be gods. I fight now to free them. The weight of that statement settled over the room. MacGyver studied TLC with new respect. This was a man who'd given up everything to fight tyranny from the inside. 3 weeks ago, Hammond said, pulling the briefing back on track, SG-2 discovered a temple on P3R-233 that matched ancient architectural patterns. The cube you just opened was in a sealed chamber with these symbols. The screen showed a wall covered in the same constellation-like glyphs as the Stargate, but arranged in patterns that suggested mathematical formulas. Daniel pushed his glasses up. The ancients were the first evolution of humanity. They built the Stargate network millions of years ago as an exploration and learning tool. They were pacifists, scientists, philosophers. Eventually, most of them ascended to a higher plane of existence, became beings of pure energy. But they left behind incredible technology all over the galaxy. Technology the Goa'uld have been scavenging for millennia, Carter added. Most of their advanced weapons and ships are stolen or reverse-engineered ancient designs. They don't innovate, they appropriate. MacGyver studied the symbols on the screen. And the cube I opened contains information the ancients left behind. Gate addresses to planets not in the Goa'uld database, Hammond confirmed. Potential ancient outposts, technology caches, maybe even other puzzle boxes like the one you solved. That cube has been sitting in our lab for 3 weeks because none of our standard approaches could open it. You accomplished in 5 minutes what our best scientists couldn't manage with 3 weeks and classified equipment. I got lucky, MacGyver said honestly. I noticed a pattern. Anyone would have eventually. No, Carter interrupted gently. I've been staring at that cube for 70 hours personally. I never thought to try harmonic resonance because I was too focused on technological interfaces. You approached it from first principles, natural laws. That's exactly the kind of thinking we need. O'Neill leaned forward, elbows on the table. Here's the situation, MacGyver. We send teams through the Stargate every week. Sometimes we find allies, trade partners, or refugees who need help. Sometimes we find Goa'uld. And sometimes we find ancient technology that could help us defend Earth against an enemy with ships that can turn our cities into molten glass. But ancient technology isn't predictable, Daniel continued. It's designed for beings who thought differently than we do. We've had devices backfire, activate unexpectedly, or do things we didn't anticipate. We need someone who can look at a problem from angles our military and scientific training don't cover. Hammond folded his hands on the table. Mr. MacGyver, I'm offering you a position as civilian consultant to Stargate Command. You'd work with SG-1 on missions involving ancient artifacts, unexplained technology, or situations requiring unconventional problem-solving. Your background in chemistry, physics, and improvisation makes you uniquely qualified. MacGyver felt the weight of the offer. Explore alien worlds. Help free enslaved populations. Solve puzzles left by an ascended civilization. It was extraordinary. It was also dangerous in ways his Phoenix Foundation work had never approached. I don't use guns, he said carefully. I won't carry a weapon. That's non-negotiable. Noted, Hammond replied. You'd be traveling with SG-1, who are armed and trained for hostile contact. Your role would be technical expertise and creative problem-solving, not combat. And I won't help develop weapons from ancient technology. If something we find could be weaponized, I need assurance it's for defense only, not aggression. O'Neill snorted but not without humor. MacGyver, we're getting our asses kicked by snake-infested false gods with delusions of grandeur and armies that outnumber us 1,000,000 to 1. We're not exactly in a position to be aggressive. Everything we do is about survival and freeing people from slavery. TLC inclined his head. I have witnessed the Goa'uld's cruelty firsthand for a century. Any weapon turned against them serves justice and freedom. But I understand your reluctance to embrace violence, MacGyver. It is a rare quality, and perhaps one this war needs to remember. MacGyver looked around the table, at Daniel's idealism tempered by loss, Carter's brilliant scientific mind wrestling with impossible physics, O'Neill's warrior pragmatism hiding genuine compassion, TLC's quiet nobility forged in rebellion against tyranny, and Hammond's steady command bearing the weight of Earth's secret defense. They were fighting a war most of humanity didn't know existed against an enemy that had enslaved civilizations for millennia. And they were asking him to help using the same skills that had defused bombs with chocolate bars and stopped missiles with hockey sticks. If I do this, MacGyver said slowly, I want to focus on solutions that don't require killing. The Goa'uld are parasites controlling human hosts. There has to be a way to free those people without killing them. Maybe ancient technology holds answers. We've been looking for exactly that, Carter said with genuine hope. The Takare, they're Goa'uld who oppose the system lords and take only willing hosts, have some extraction methods, but they're not perfect. If you could improve that technology. Then we save people instead of just fighting an endless war, Daniel finished. That's what I've been arguing for since day one. O'Neill rubbed his face. Don't get me wrong, MacGyver, I'm all for saving the innocent. But sometimes the snake doesn't give you a choice. Sometimes it's shoot first or watch your teammates die. Can you live with that reality even if you're not the one pulling the trigger? MacGyver met the colonel's eyes. He'd worked in war zones before, seen the impossible choices combat forced on good people. I can live with defending lives, Colonel. I just won't take them myself if there's any other option. Fair enough. O'Neill extended his hand across the table. Welcome to the team, MacGyver. The handshake was firm, a warrior's acknowledgement of a different kind of soldier. Hammond stood. You'll need a security clearance upgrade, medical clearance, and gate travel orientation. Major Carter will handle your technical briefings. Dr. Jackson can cover cultural and historical context. TLC will familiarize you with Goa'uld tactics and technology. Colonel O'Neill will teach you how not to get killed. When do I start? MacGyver asked. Tomorrow morning, 0600, Hammond said. SG-1 has a mission to P3X-797. Long-range probe detected ancient architecture. Since you're our new expert on ancient puzzle boxes, you're going with them. Consider it your field test. MacGyver felt his pulse quicken, not fear exactly, but the electric anticipation of stepping into unknown territory with only his wits and whatever he could improvise. It was the feeling he'd chased his entire career, the moment where impossible became merely improbable. I'll be ready, General. Dismissed. Colonel, get your new team member settled in guest quarters and issue him field gear. No weapon, per his request, but he gets body armor and a radio. Non-negotiable, MacGyver. As they filed out, Daniel clapped MacGyver on the shoulder. You're going to love this. P3X-797 has ruins that predate Egyptian pyramids by 10,000 years. The archaeology alone is worth the trip. Assuming we don't get shot at, O'Neill added cheerfully. Which we will. We always do. TLC raised an eyebrow. Indeed. MacGyver smiled despite the casual discussion of combat. These people walked through a ring to other worlds as casually as he drove to the office. They faced parasitic false gods and ancient mysteries with professionalism, humor, and an unshakable commitment to protecting Earth and freeing the enslaved. He'd joined stranger teams for better reasons, but never one where the stakes stretched across the galaxy. His Swiss Army knife felt suddenly inadequate in his pocket, but then again, he'd saved lives with less. Tomorrow, he'd step through the Stargate for the first time. Tonight, he had a lot to learn about staying alive on alien worlds. MacGyver stood in the gate room at 0545 hours, watching technicians run final diagnostics on the Stargate. The massive ring dominated the space like an ancient monument that had somehow learned to think. Carter had spent 2 hours the previous evening explaining the physics, wormhole mechanics, event horizon stability, molecular deconstruction and reconstruction, but standing here now, about to step through, theory felt inadequate against the reality of what he was about to do. First time's always weird, O'Neill said, appearing at his elbow. The colonel wore BDUs, tactical vest loaded with magazines, P90 slung across his chest, and a Beretta holstered at his thigh. Zat gun, one of those Goa'uld weapons that stunned, killed, or disintegrated depending on how many times you shot someone, clipped to his belt. Combat Ready didn't begin to cover it. MacGyver wore similar BDUs and body armor, but his vest carried very different cargo, coiled wire, chemical light sticks, a compact tool kit, zip ties, duct tape, a small chemistry set in a padded case, and his trusty Swiss Army knife. His Phoenix Foundation credentials were tucked in a sealed pocket alongside his driver's license, a strange talisman of normal life he was about to leave behind for a few hours. How weird are we talking? MacGyver asked. Imagine being disassembled atom by atom, transmitted through a subspace wormhole at faster-than-light speeds, then reassembled 30,000 light-years away. It's like that, but with more of a pulling sensation. That's not remotely comforting, Colonel. O'Neill grinned. Call me Jack. We're about to trust each other with our lives on an alien planet potentially crawling with homicidal false gods. Formality seems excessive. Carter descended the stairs from the control room, checking her own equipment. She caught MacGyver's expression and offered a reassuring smile. The Stargate has a 99.9% safety record. You'll be fine. Just don't think about the molecular deconstruction part too much. Now I'm definitely thinking about it, MacGyver muttered. Daniel joined them, wearing similar gear but with a significantly more battered look. His vest had scorch marks and his glasses were held together with what looked like wire and hope. The ruins on P3X-797 are incredible from the MALP footage. Stone blocks weighing hundreds of tons fitted together without mortar, astronomical alignments that suggest advanced knowledge of celestial mechanics, and hieroglyphs that are definitely ancient language. If we can translate them. Daniel, Jack interrupted gently. Breathing. Remember breathing. Right. Sorry. I get excited about 10,000-year-old civilizations. TLC emerged from the armory, carrying his staff weapon with casual expertise. The weapon was taller than MacGyver, a golden shaft that split open at one end to fire energy blasts. The Jaffa noticed MacGyver studying it and offered explanation. This weapon is designed for intimidation as much as effectiveness. The Goa'uld prefer their enemies to fear them. Your own military's P-90 is tactically superior in most combat situations. But it doesn't make the cool sound, Jack added. The staff weapon goes whoosh boom. Very dramatic. Indeed. The Goa'uld value theatricality. Over the loudspeaker, Hammond's voice echoed through the gate room. SG-1, you have a go. Mission parameters are reconnaissance and artifact recovery. P3X-797 shows no signs of current habitation, but stay alert. Goa'uld patrols have been reported in that sector. You have 48 hours. Godspeed. The Stargate activation sequence began. A technician at the control console called out, Chevron 1, encoded, as the first triangular symbol locked into place with a mechanical clang that resonated through MacGyver's chest. 7 symbols. 7 locks between here and an alien world. Chevron 2, encoded. Carter stepped closer to MacGyver. When we go through, there's about 2 seconds of disorientation. You'll feel cold, see a bright light, and experience momentary sensory disruption. Then you'll be standing in front of another Stargate on P3X-797. Just keep walking forward. Don't stop in the event horizon. Chevron 3, encoded. What happens if I stop? MacGyver asked, then immediately regretted it. You'd probably be fine, Carter said with slightly less certainty than he'd hoped for. Probably. Chevron 4, encoded. Jack chambered around in his P-90 with practiced efficiency. Standard drill, Carter and I go through first, secure the immediate area. TLC follows, covers R6. Daniel, you and MacGyver come through together. Stay close to the DHD, don't wander off to look at pretty ruins until we've confirmed the area's clear. Everyone stays in radio contact. If things go sideways, we fall back to the gate, dial Earth, and get out. Simple. Chevron 5, encoded. Define things go sideways, MacGyver said. Jaffa Patrol. Goa'uld. Hostile natives. Local predators. Unexploded ancient technology. Dimensional anomalies. Take your pick, we've encountered all of them. Chevron 6, encoded. MacGyver took a slow breath. He'd jumped out of helicopters, defused bombs with seconds to spare, and faced down terrorists with nothing but improvised chemistry. But those were Earth-based dangers, governed by physics he understood and enemies who were fundamentally human. This was different. This was stepping through a ring to another planet where the rules might be completely different. Chevron 7, locked. The center of the Stargate exploded outward in a cascade of liquid energy. The unstable vortex Carter had called the Khepesh in her technical briefing. The eruption reached halfway across the gate room before being sucked back into the ring, leaving behind a shimmering vertical pool of rippling light. It looked like water but moved like mercury, reflecting the gate room lights in patterns that hurt to look at directly. That's our ride, Jack said cheerfully. He and Carter moved up the ramp without hesitation, P-90s raised to shoulders, and stepped through the event horizon. They vanished instantly, bodies consumed by the liquid light as if they'd never existed. TLC followed with the same calm he'd displayed since MacGyver met him. The staff weapon preceded him through, then the Jaffa warrior disappeared into the shimmer. Daniel adjusted his glasses nervously. First time I went through, I threw up on the other side. Nobody tells you that part. Just, fair warning. Comforting, MacGyver said, but he was already moving up the ramp. His legs felt detached from his brain, operating on autopilot. The event horizon filled his vision, impossible, beautiful, terrifying. He could feel the cold radiating from it, smell ozone and something else, something alien and electric. On 3, Daniel said beside him. 1, 2. They stepped through together. Cold hit MacGyver like a physical blow, driving the air from his lungs. His vision whited out in a flash of brilliant light that seemed to come from inside his skull. He felt his body come apart. Not painfully, but with a sensation of profound wrongness, like every atom was suddenly aware of being separate from its neighbors. Time stretched. He was falling through an infinite tunnel of light and mathematics, equations written in colors that didn't exist, his consciousness fragmenting across 30,000 light-years of. His boot hit stone. Gravity reasserted itself with jarring suddenness. MacGyver stumbled forward, gasping, his vision clearing to reveal an alien sky. 2 suns hung above the horizon, one amber, one pale yellow, casting double shadows across ruins that stretched to the distance. The air tasted different, drier, with a metallic tang he couldn't place. The ground beneath his boots was carved stone, weathered by millennia but still showing precise edges and astronomical alignments. Behind him, the Stargate shut down with a sound like thunder being swallowed. The event horizon collapsed, leaving only the inactive ring standing in the center of what had once been a plaza. Ancient symbols covered the surrounding stones, the same constellation-like glyphs he'd seen at SGC but arranged in narrative sequences. "Welcome to P3X 797, Carter said. She and Jack had taken defensive positions flanking the gate, weapons trained outward. TLC stood near a stone obelisk, staff weapon ready, scanning the ruins with eyes that missed nothing. Daniel was bent over, hands on knees, breathing hard. "I'm fine," he gasped. "Just, give me a second." MacGyver's own stomach was doing gymnastics, but he kept his breakfast down through sheer willpower. The disorientation was fading, replaced by wonder. He was on an alien planet. Actually standing on another world, breathing alien air under alien suns. The reality of it crashed over him in waves. MALP readings confirmed, Carter reported, checking a handheld scanner. Atmosphere is breathable, 72 degrees Fahrenheit, slightly lower oxygen content than Earth but within acceptable parameters. No immediate radiation hazards. No energy signatures indicating active technology or Goa'uld presence. Jack lowered his P90 fractionally. "Alright, we're clear for now. Daniel, you and MacGyver start documenting. Carter, see if you can get those scanner readings on any ancient tech in the area. TLC and I will maintain perimeter security." Daniel had recovered enough to straighten, and his face transformed with pure academic joy. "Oh, this is incredible. Look at these hieroglyphs. That's definitely ancient script, the early formation that predates their written language standardization. And the astronomical alignments." He pulled out a digital camera and started photographing frantically. MacGyver approached the nearest wall, studying the symbols. They flowed in horizontal registers, telling some kind of story. He couldn't read the language, but the mathematical precision in the layout was obvious. Whoever built this had been master engineers and astronomers. "MacGyver, over here," Carter called. She stood near a doorway carved into what had once been a much larger structure. Now only the entrance and portions of 2 walls remained, the rest crumbled by time. "I'm getting faint energy readings from inside. Could be an ancient device still operational after all these millennia." Jack appeared at her shoulder. "Or it could be a Goa'uld bomb. Let's not forget they like to booby-trap ancient sites." "Which is why we brought MacGyver," Daniel said, joining them. "If it is a trap, he can probably defuse it with a paperclip and some chewing gum." "I prefer duct tape, actually," MacGyver said, peering into the doorway. The interior was dark, but his eyes adjusted to reveal a chamber maybe 20 feet square. At the center stood a pedestal, and on that pedestal sat another crystalline object, not a cube this time, but a pyramid, roughly 2 feet tall, pulsing with the same internal light as the device he'd opened at SGC. That's ancient technology, Carter confirmed, checking her scanner. Energy signature matches the power frequencies we've documented from other ancient artifacts. It's active but dormant, like it's waiting for input. Or for someone to get close enough to trigger whatever it does, Jack added. I vote we pack it up carefully and bring it back to the lab where we have blast doors and medical facilities. MacGyver studied the chamber's architecture. The walls were covered in more hieroglyphs, but these formed geometric patterns around the doorway and pedestal. Warning symbols, maybe, or instructions. Daniel, can you read any of this? Daniel squeezed past them into the chamber, angling his flashlight at the walls. His fingers traced the symbols, and his expression shifted from curiosity to concern. Oh. Oh no. This isn't a treasure vault. It's a containment facility. Containment for what? Carter asked, though her tone suggested she already suspected the answer. For that. Daniel pointed at the pyramid. These symbols say something like, knowledge sealed within and opened only by the worthy, N. I think this word means, danger, or possibly, warning. The grammar's ambiguous. TLC's voice came from outside. We have company. Through the doorway, MacGyver saw TLC pointing toward the horizon. In the distance, a bright light descended from the amber sun, no, not from the sun, through the sky. A ship. Angular, golden, unmistakably artificial. Goa'uld cargo ship, Carter said, her voice tight. Teltac class. They must have detected the Stargate activation. Jack was already moving. Everyone back to the gate, now. We can come back for the pyramid later when we're not about to get shot. But as MacGyver turned to leave, the pyramid's light intensified. A beam of amber energy shot upward, piercing through the remaining roof and stabbing into the sky like a signal beacon. It activated, Carter breathed. The ship's approach must have triggered some kind of proximity response. The Teltac changed course, heading directly for their position. And in that moment, with a Goa'uld ship bearing down and an ancient device broadcasting their location like a lighthouse, MacGyver realized his field test was about to become significantly more complicated. Carter, can you shut it down? Jack barked, already moving to a defensive position behind a fallen column. His P-90 tracked the incoming ship, which had slowed to a hover roughly 300 yards out. Carter pulled out her scanner, fingers flying over the controls. I'm trying, but it's not responding to any standard shutdown protocols. The energy signature is increasing, it's like the pyramid is trying to communicate with the ship. MacGyver studied the beam of light lancing skyward. The pyramid sat on its pedestal, surfaces glowing with shifting patterns that reminded him of the cube at SGC. But where that device had been waiting patiently for the right frequency, this one was actively broadcasting. It's not a weapon, he said, thinking aloud. It's a beacon. The ancients built this to signal something. Well, it's signaling the Goa'uld, Jack said. Which is extremely unhelpful right now. The Teltac settled into a landing configuration, its hull shimmering as transport rings descended. Golden light coalesced into solid forms, 6 Jaffa warriors in serpent guard armor, staff weapons raised, and between them a figure in elaborate robes whose eyes glowed with parasitic fire. Jaffa, Kree. The command echoed across the ruins. The warriors spread into tactical formation with practiced efficiency, staff weapons trained on SG-1's position. TLC's grip tightened on his own weapon. That is Khepesh, underlord to the system Lord Ares. He commands 3 motherships and is known for his cruelty. Fantastic, Jack muttered. Daniel, any chance those hieroglyphs mention how to turn off the "please come kill us" beacon? Daniel was frantically photographing the wall symbols with one hand while keeping his head down. I'm looking. The grammar here is really archaic. Humans of the Tauri. The Goa'uld's voice reverberated with artificial depth, the symbiote's technology modulating the host's vocal cords. You dare activate ancient technology in territory claimed by Ares. Surrender the device and submit to judgment, or be destroyed. Option 3, Jack called back. We keep the shiny pyramid and you go bother someone else. How's that sound? The Goa'uld's eyes flared brighter. Your insolence will be corrected through pain, human. Jaffa, Kelmar talk. The staff weapons opened with their characteristic metallic snap, and energy bolts began hammering the ruins around SG-1's position. Stone exploded in superheated fragments. Carter returned fire with her P-90, the modern weapon's staccato bark a sharp contrast to the deep whump of the Goa'uld weapons. TLC's staff weapon answered in kind, forcing 2 Jaffa to dive for cover. MacGyver pressed himself against the wall inside the chamber, his mind racing. 6 Jaffa plus a Goa'uld against 4 armed soldiers and 1 unarmed improviser. The math wasn't good, even with SG-1's superior tactics. And that Teltac probably had more warriors aboard as reinforcements. They needed to either shut down the beacon or use it somehow, because fighting their way out wasn't a sustainable option. He turned back to the pyramid, studying it more carefully now. The light beam wasn't continuous, it pulsed in complex patterns, like Morse code written in light frequencies. The crystalline surfaces showed equations in the same shifting color mathematics he'd seen during gate travel. Whatever this device was communicating, it was sophisticated. Daniel. MacGyver called over the sound of weapons fire. Those hieroglyphs, are they instructions or warnings? Daniel risked a glance at the wall while bullets and energy blasts tore up the ruins outside. Both. It says something like, the unworthy bring danger, the worthy bring, I think that word is understanding or maybe harmony. Same root as the word for resonance. Resonance. Just like the cube at SGC. MacGyver's mind flashed back to that moment, the tuning fork, the harmonic frequency, the cube responding to organized vibration rather than technological interface. The ancients built their technology around natural laws, not brute force. I need something that vibrates at a specific frequency, MacGyver said, pulling his Swiss Army knife from his pocket. The blade wouldn't work, too irregular. But the knife had other tools. He flipped through them until he found a small saw blade, roughly 3 inches long and designed to cut through light materials. If he could get it vibrating at the right frequency. Outside, the firefight intensified. We need to move. Jack shouted. TLC, covering fire. Carter, Daniel, fall back to the gate. But MacGyver barely heard them. He was focused on the pyramid, on the way its light pulsed in that complex pattern. If the cube had responded to 440 Hz, concert A frequency fundamental to musical harmony, then maybe this device needed something similar but more sophisticated. A chord instead of a single note. He didn't have a tuning fork or a musical instrument. But he had physics and a Swiss Army knife. MacGyver grabbed a piece of fallen stone from the chamber floor, roughly cylindrical, about the size of his palm. He wedged one end of the saw blade under it, creating a makeshift lever. Then he struck the free end of the blade sharply against the pedestal. The metal sang, a clear, bright note that rang through the chamber. The pyramid's light flickered. MacGyver, we're leaving. Carter appeared in the doorway, her face streaked with dust. The Goa'uld is calling for reinforcements. 30 seconds, MacGyver said, adjusting the blade angle. He struck it again, this time at a different position. The note changed, lower. The pyramid's light pulsed faster. He was getting closer to the harmonic frequency it needed, but he wasn't there yet. An energy bolt hit the doorframe inches from Carter's head, showering them both with superheated stone fragments. She returned fire on full auto, dropping a Jaffa who'd gotten too close. We don't have 30 seconds. MacGyver struck the blade a third time, fine-tuning the position by millimeters. This time the note was perfect. A harmonic that resonated not just through the metal but through the stone chamber itself, amplified by the precise architectural acoustics the ancients had engineered into the structure. The pyramid responded immediately. The light beam cut off. The pyramid's surfaces began to fold inward, the same intricate geometric transformation as the cube, but in reverse. The internal glow dimmed, patterns shifting from active broadcast to passive reception. Within seconds, it had collapsed into a compact form roughly the size of a softball, still glowing faintly, but no longer shouting its presence to every Goa'uld ship in the sector. Got it. MacGyver grabbed the deactivated pyramid, which was cool to the touch despite its internal light. He shoved it into his pack and sealed the flap. Carter stared at him for half a second. You just shut down an ancient beacon by hitting a Swiss Army knife with a rock. Harmonic resonance, MacGyver explained, already moving toward the door. The ancients designed their technology to respond to. Save the physics lesson. Jack's voice cracked over the radio. TLCS pinned down and we've got more Jaffa inbound. Move, move, move. MacGyver and Carter burst from the chamber into chaos. The ruins were lit by weapons fire from multiple directions. TLC had fallen back to a position near the Stargate, his staff weapon keeping 3 Jaffa at bay. Daniel was at the DHD, frantically dialing Earth. 7 symbols had to lock in sequence before they could escape, and each chevron took precious seconds. The Goa'uld Khepesh stood in the open, protected by a personal shield that shimmered gold whenever bullets struck it. His hand was raised, and MacGyver recognized the ribbon device from his briefing, the Khepesh, a Goa'uld weapon that could crush organs or snap bones with focused energy. Your tricks are meaningless. Khepesh's voice boomed. Ares will hear of this intrusion. The Tauri will burn for your. Jack shot him. The bullet sparked off the personal shield, but the force staggered the Goa'uld backward. Really getting tired of the monologuing, Jack muttered, changing magazines with practiced speed. TLC, path to the gate. TLC's staff weapon fired in measured bursts, each shot forcing a Jaffa warrior to dive for cover. The way is clear, O'Neill. But the Goa'uld summons reinforcements. Indeed, more transport rings were descending from the Teltac, 6 more Jaffa materializing in golden light. The odds had just gotten worse. Chevron 6 encoded. Daniel called from the DHD. 1 more symbol to lock. MacGyver's mind raced through options. They were outgunned, pinned down, and the Goa'uld had reinforcements while SG-1 had an active Stargate as their only exit. They needed a distraction, something to buy Daniel the 15 seconds he needed to lock the 7th chevron and establish the wormhole. His eyes fell on the chemical light sticks in his vest. Civilian glow sticks, the kind used for camping or emergency lighting. Each one contained hydrogen peroxide in a thin glass vial surrounded by a phenyl oxalate ester and fluorescent dye. Break the vial, the chemicals mix, you get light through chemiluminescence. Not dangerous. Unless you modified them. Carter. MacGyver pulled out 3 light sticks and his small chemistry kit. I need your lighter fluid, the stuff you use for your camp stove. She stared at him. We're in a firefight and you want to. Trust me. 30 seconds. Carter threw him a small bottle without further argument. MacGyver worked fast, cracking the light sticks but not shaking them to activate. He carefully poured lighter fluid into each tube, mixing it with the chemicals inside. Then he added a pinch of magnesium powder from his kit, the stuff photographers used for old-style flash photography. The mixture was unstable, volatile, and absolutely not recommended by any safety manual. Perfect. Jack. MacGyver shouted. I need you to shoot these when I throw them. The colonel didn't question the request. Throw, M. MacGyver hurled the first modified light stick toward the largest cluster of Jaffa. It arced through the double sunlit air, spinning end over end. Jack tracked it with his P90 and fired a 3-round burst. The bullets punctured the plastic tube mid-flight. The light stick exploded. Not with the force of a grenade, but with a brilliant flash of white-hot magnesium fire that ignited the lighter fluid in a fireball 15 feet across. The Jaffa warriors caught in the blast threw up their arms, momentarily blinded by the intensity. Their formation scattered. MacGyver threw the second and third sticks in quick succession. Jack hit both. More explosions bloomed across the ruins, bathing everything in burning white light. The Goa'uld's personal shield flared gold, absorbing the heat but obscuring his vision. Chevron 7, locked. Daniel's voice was triumph mixed with terror. The Stargate erupted in its familiar kawoosh, the unstable vortex blasting outward before settling into the shimmering event horizon. Home. Safety. 30,000 light-years of instant escape. Go, go, go. Jack commanded. Daniel dove through first, vanishing into the rippling light. Carter was right behind him, turning to provide covering fire even as she crossed the threshold. TLC walked backward up the ramp, staff weapon firing precisely to keep the Jaffa pinned down. MacGyver ran for the gate, the deactivated ancient pyramid bouncing in his pack. Energy bolts hissed past his head, superheating the air. He could feel the cold radiating from the event horizon, smell the ozone. Jack was beside him, firing controlled bursts. Never thought I'd be happy to see a civilian MacGyver a bomb out of camping supplies, but here we are. They hit the event horizon together. Cold. Light. The sensation of being pulled apart and reassembled across impossible distance. Then MacGyver was stumbling down the ramp at SGC, gasping, as klaxons blared and the iris slammed shut behind them. The Stargate deactivated with its characteristic thunder-swallowed sound. On the other side, an angry Goa'uld and a dozen Jaffa warriors were trapped 30,000 light-years away with no way to follow. SG-1, report. Hammond's voice boomed from the control room. Jack keyed his radio, breathing hard. Mission accomplished, General. We got the ancient device. Also made some new enemies, but that's pretty much standard for us. MacGyver sank to his knees on the ramp, his heart hammering. His first mission through the Stargate, combat with parasitic aliens, ancient technology activated and deactivated through improvised harmonic resonance, and he'd just weaponized camping supplies while under fire on an alien planet. TLC offered him a hand up. You fought well, MacGyver. For one who does not carry weapons, you proved most resourceful in their creation. I didn't mean to make bombs, MacGyver said weakly. I just needed a distraction. Indeed. A most effective distraction. Carter was grinning despite the dust and scorch marks on her uniform. Harmonic resonance. You actually shut down an active ancient beacon with a Swiss Army knife and applied physics. That's going in the mission report. Daniel appeared, already pulling the pyramid from MacGyver's pack with reverent hands. This is incredible. If we can translate the data inside, it might lead us to other ancient sites, maybe even technology that could help against the Goa'uld. Debrief in 1 hour, Hammond ordered. Medical clearance first. Good work, people. As the team headed for the infirmary, Jack fell into step beside MacGyver. So. First mission through the Stargate. How was it? MacGyver thought about the double suns, the ancient ruins, the casual way the Goa'uld had ordered their deaths, and the terrifying beauty of gate travel itself. Intense. Terrifying. Incredible. Yeah, Jack said with feeling. That about covers it. You did good out there, MacGyver. Most civilians would have frozen up when the shooting started. You kept your head and found a solution that saved our asses. I just applied basic physics. You improvised under fire on an alien planet while outnumbered by space Nazis with glowing eyes. Take the compliment. MacGyver smiled despite his exhaustion. Thanks, Jack. In his pack, the ancient pyramid pulsed with faint light, its secrets still locked inside crystalline matrices. But MacGyver had learned something important on P3X 797. The galaxy was full of puzzles left by beings who thought in harmonics and natural laws. And he was exactly the kind of person who could solve them. Even if it meant getting shot at by false gods in the process. The infirmary at SGC was efficient and sterile, all chrome surfaces and humming medical equipment. Dr. Janet Fraser, a petite woman with sharp eyes and an air of absolute authority despite being barely 5 feet tall, examined MacGyver with professional thoroughness while he sat on an examination table still wearing his dusty BDUs. Elevated heart rate, but that's expected after gate travel and combat, she said, checking his vitals. No signs of radiation exposure or contamination. The bruising on your shoulder is probably from the recoil when that energy blast hit near you. You're lucky, 6 inches closer and we'd be discussing second-degree burns. I'll try to be more careful next time, MacGyver said. Dr. Fraser raised an eyebrow. Next time. You've been working here for exactly 1 day and you're already planning to go back through. She shone a penlight in his eyes, checking pupil response. You're either very brave or very crazy. Maybe a little of both. She smiled slightly. That's the standard psychological profile for everyone who works here. You'll fit right in. She made notes on her chart. You're cleared for duty. Try not to improvise any more explosives for at least 48 hours. My nurses are still cleaning up the last time Colonel O'Neill got creative with ordnance. MacGyver found the rest of SG-1 in the debriefing room, arranged around the conference table with steaming mugs of coffee. Hammond sat at the head, a recording device capturing every word. The deactivated ancient pyramid sat in the center of the table, its faint internal glow casting strange shadows. Mr. MacGyver, take a seat, Hammond said. We were just reviewing the mission timeline. Colonel O'Neill reports that you successfully deactivated an ancient beacon under hostile fire using unconventional methods. Walk me through your thinking. MacGyver accepted a cup of coffee from Carter. Black, strong enough to strip paint, and collected his thoughts. The beacon was built by the ancients, who designed their technology around natural harmonic principles rather than mechanical interfaces. The cube I opened yesterday responded to a tuning fork's frequency. The pyramid was more complex, it was actively broadcasting rather than passively waiting, but the underlying principle was the same. I needed to find the resonant frequency that would tell it to shut down. So you hit a Swiss Army knife with a rock, Jack said, not without admiration. I created a vibrating lever system that let me fine-tune the harmonic frequency by adjusting the striking position. The chamber's acoustics amplified the sound. When I hit the right frequency, the pyramid recognized it as a command signal and deactivated. MacGyver took a sip of coffee and tried not to wince at its industrial strength. The ancients probably had some kind of sophisticated tool for this, but the principle works the same whether you're using advanced technology or improvised physics. Daniel leaned forward, eyes bright with academic excitement. Which means other ancient devices might respond to similar approaches. We've been trying to interface with their technology using computers and electrical signals, but if they built everything around harmonic resonance and natural frequencies. Then MacGyver just gave us a new methodology for activation and control, Carter finished. This could revolutionize how we approach ancient artifacts. TLC inclined his head. It also drew the attention of the Goa'uld Khepesh. He will report our presence to Ares, who will undoubtedly seek revenge for this intrusion into his territory. Hammond's expression darkened. How big a problem is this, Ares? Major problem, Jack said. System Lord, commands 3 Hatak motherships, controls maybe 40 planets. He's not top tier like Apophis or RA was, but he's ambitious and aggressive. If he decides Earth is a threat worth eliminating, we're looking at a full-scale attack. Then we need to know what's inside that pyramid, Hammond said, nodding toward the device. If the Goa'uld are willing to defend it, it must contain valuable intelligence. Major Carter, Dr. Jackson, I want a full analysis. MacGyver, you're the ancient technology expert now whether you like it or not. Work with them. Yes, sir, MacGyver said, studying the pyramid with new appreciation. Whatever information it contained had been important enough for the ancients to build a beacon and a containment facility around it. That suggested either incredible value or incredible danger. Possibly both. One more thing, Hammond continued. The light stick explosions, effective, but reckless. We have actual explosives if you need them. I don't use weapons, General, MacGyver reminded him gently. Those weren't meant to kill, just to create a distraction through intense light and heat. The magnesium flash would temporarily blind but not permanently harm. It was the safest option that would still work. Jack snorted. MacGyver's version of non-lethal is apparently white-hot chemical explosion. I'm almost afraid to see what he considers actual weaponry. I won't find out, MacGyver said firmly. But I'll keep finding solutions that don't require me to carry a gun. Hammond studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Fair enough. You proved yourself today, Mr. MacGyver. You kept your principles and saved your team. That's exactly the kind of person we need here. Dismissed. Get some rest, you've earned it. The team filed out, but Carter caught MacGyver's arm in the corridor. Can I show you something? In my lab. It's related to what we found today. Her lab was organized chaos. Workbenches covered with alien technology in various states of disassembly, white boards filled with equations that looked like they'd been written by someone having a conversation with the universe itself, and a coffee maker that appeared to be held together with wire and determination. Carter pulled a cloth off a device sitting on the central bench. It looked like a metallic band, roughly the size of a bracelet, covered in ancient symbols and set with small crystals. This is an ancient personal shield generator, she explained. We recovered it from a Goa'uld dig site 6 months ago. It's supposed to create a protective energy barrier around the wearer, similar to the shield Khepesh was using today. But we can't activate it. I've tried everything. Electrical current, electromagnetic stimulation, quantum field manipulation. Nothing works. MacGyver examined the device without touching it. The crystals were arranged in a geometric pattern that suggested musical intervals, thirds, fifths, octaves. Have you tried sound? Not specifically. I assumed ancient technology would be more sophisticated than, she stopped, realization dawning. Then audio frequencies. But if the pyramid and cube both respond to harmonic resonance, then this probably does too. MacGyver studied the crystal arrangement more carefully. The pattern suggests a chord rather than a single note. Multiple frequencies played simultaneously. Do you have access to a tone generator? Carter pulled up a program on her laptop. I can generate any frequency you want. What are we looking for? The intervals between those crystals, MacGyver measured with his fingers, calculating ratios. Try 440 Hz, 554 Hz, and 659 Hz simultaneously. That's an A major chord. The crystal positioning suggests perfect intervals. Carter input the frequencies and played them through her computer speakers. The 3 tones combined into a resonant chord that filled the lab with harmonic complexity. The shield generator blazed to life. A shimmer of golden energy erupted from the device, expanding into a bubble roughly 3 feet in diameter before stabilizing. Carter gasped and reached toward it. Her fingers touched the surface and couldn't pass through. The shield was solid, impenetrable. It works, she breathed. After 6 months of trying every technological approach we have, the answer was music theory and harmonic ratios. She looked at MacGyver with something approaching awe. How did you know? The ancients were scientists and philosophers, MacGyver said, thinking about what Daniel had told him about the ascended civilization. They understood that the universe operates on mathematical principles expressed through physical phenomena. Music is just mathematics made audible. If they ascended to a higher plane of existence, they probably chose to encode their technology using principles that transcend mechanical engineering, universal constants like harmonic frequencies that would work anywhere physics exists. Carter was already taking notes, her mind clearly racing ahead to applications. If this works for personal shields, it might work for ship shields, weapon systems, transportation devices. MacGyver, you've potentially given us the key to understanding an entire technological paradigm we've been approaching completely wrong. We need to be careful, MacGyver cautioned. The ancients didn't just abandon their technology randomly. They ascended and left it behind because they moved beyond needing it. But that doesn't mean it's safe for us to use. That pyramid was in a containment facility with warning symbols. Not all ancient technology is benevolent. Agreed. Carter deactivated the shield generator, and the golden energy bubble collapsed. Which is why we need someone like you working with us. Someone who can activate these devices but has the sense to question whether we should. A klaxon suddenly blared through the facility, 3 sharp bursts followed by a steady wail. Carter's expression shifted from excitement to alarm in an instant. That's the intruder alert, she said, already moving toward the door. Someone's accessed the gate room without authorization. They ran through the corridors, meeting Jack and TLC converging from different directions. The colonel had his sidearm drawn, and TLC carried his staff weapon. Daniel emerged from his office, looking confused and concerned. "What's happening?" he asked. "Unauthorized gate room access," Jack said tersely. "Either someone broke into the most secure facility on Earth, or we've got a spy." They reached the gate room overlook to find security personnel surrounding a single figure standing on the entrance ramp. The person wore elegant robes of deep purple and gold, and even from this distance, MacGyver could see the intelligence in their eyes and the strange metallic implant at the base of their neck. Takare, TLC identified immediately. The symbiote and host are visible in the neck structure. Hammond's voice came over the intercom. "Identify yourself immediately. You are in violation of restricted military space." The figure looked up at the control room with calm dignity. When they spoke, their voice carried the same dual-tone quality MacGyver had heard from the Goa'uld Khepesh, but without the aggressive resonance. This sounded like 2 people speaking in harmony rather than one voice dominating another. "I am a niece of the Takare. My host is Freya. We come under the treaty established with the Tauri. We bear urgent intelligence regarding the ancient device you recovered from P3X-797. How do you know about that mission?" Hammond demanded. "We completed it less than 4 hours ago. Because the device you activated sent a signal across the entire galaxy," Anise replied. "And not just to the Goa'uld. The ancient beacon you triggered was designed to locate individuals with specific genetic markers. Individuals who carry the ancient gene naturally rather than through artificial enhancement." MacGyver felt a chill run through him. The beacon hadn't been calling to ships or technology. It had been calling to people. "What genetic markers?" Carter asked, though her voice suggested she already suspected the answer. Anissa's eyes locked onto MacGyver with disturbing precision. The beacon was searching for natural carriers of the ATA gene, the ancient technology activation gene. And according to our intelligence network, it found one. Angus MacGyver of Earth has a genetic profile that marks him as a direct descendant of the ancients themselves. The silence that followed was absolute. Daniel broke it first, his voice barely above a whisper. "That's why the devices respond to you so easily. Not just because you understand harmonic resonance, but because you're genetically compatible with ancient technology. The beacon recognized you the moment you got close. And so did every Goa'uld with monitoring stations in that sector," Anise continued. "Khepesh has already reported to Ares that an ancient descendant has revealed themselves on Earth. The system lords will view this as both opportunity and threat. They will come for you, MacGyver. They will want to claim you as a host, study you, or eliminate you depending on their disposition. Jack's gun never wavered from Anise, but his eyes were on MacGyver. How much danger are we talking about? Immense, Anise said simply. An individual who can naturally activate ancient technology without training or enhancement. That person could unlock weapons, ships, and knowledge that have been sealed for millions of years. The strategic value is incalculable. And the Goa'uld know it. MacGyver looked down at his hands, the same hands that had opened the cube and deactivated the pyramid, that had improvised solutions from chemistry and physics his entire career. He'd thought he was just clever, just good at seeing patterns. But apparently, his ability to interface with ancient technology wasn't just skill. It was genetic destiny. And now he'd painted a target on himself that stretched across the galaxy. Hammond's voice was steady but grim. Stand down, security. If she wanted us dead, we'd already be dead. Anise of the talk array, you're cleared to approach the control room. We need to hear everything you know. As the talk array made her way up the stairs with fluid grace, MacGyver felt the weight of implications settling over him. He'd joined Stargate Command to solve ancient puzzles with improvisation and creativity. Instead, he'd just become the most valuable, and most hunted, person in the galaxy. The briefing room felt smaller with Anise present. The talk array sat with perfect poise, her dual nature evident in the way her expressions shifted subtly, Anise's calculating intelligence alternating with Freya's warmer humanity. MacGyver found it disconcerting to watch, knowing that two separate consciousnesses were sharing one body in genuine partnership rather than the parasitic domination the Goa'uld practiced. The ancient gene is extraordinarily rare, Anise explained, her fingers steepled on the conference table. We estimate fewer than 1 in 10 million humans carry a sufficient concentration to activate ancient technology naturally. Most require artificial gene therapy, which provides only partial compatibility. But a natural carrier, her eyes fixed on MacGyver. You represent something the galaxy hasn't seen in millennia. How rare are we talking? Carter asked, her scientific curiosity warring with obvious concern. I underwent the gene therapy 6 months ago and can activate some ancient devices, but not reliably. Are you saying MacGyver's natural gene expression is significantly stronger? Exponentially stronger, Anise confirmed. The therapy provides perhaps 10 to 15% of full ancient genetic compatibility. A natural carrier like MacGyver would possess 70 to 90% compatibility. The difference between turning on a light switch and conducting a symphony. Daniel removed his glasses and cleaned them nervously, his tell when processing disturbing information. The ancients seeded humans across the galaxy millions of years ago. Their genetic legacy exists in all of us, but concentrated expressions are random mutations that occur maybe once a generation per planet. MacGyver having this level of expression and happening to work for the Phoenix Foundation, which happens to bring him to the attention of the SGC, he trailed off, the implication staggering. Is not coincidence, TLC finished. The ancients, even ascended, may have influenced events to bring MacGyver to this place at this time. Whoa, hold on, Jack said, raising a hand. Are we saying MacGyver's entire life has been manipulated by glowing space ghosts with a god complex? The ancients took an oath of non-interference when they ascended, Anise said carefully. But they are not infallible. Some have been known to nudge events in directions they consider beneficial. If they wanted someone with natural ancient gene expression to reach the Stargate program, subtle influences over years or decades would be well within their capabilities. MacGyver felt his world tilting. Every choice he'd made, joining the Phoenix Foundation, developing his improvisation skills, even being in the right place to receive Hammond's phone call, might have been gently guided by beings of pure energy with an agenda he couldn't comprehend. I'd like to think I have free will, he said quietly. You do, Anise assured him, and this time the voice was softer, Freya speaking. The ancients guide, they don't control. Every choice you made was yours. They simply ensured opportunities were available when you were ready. It's the difference between building a road and forcing someone to walk it. Still creepy, Jack muttered. Hammond leaned forward, his command presence reasserting control over the derailing conversation. Philosophical implications aside, we need to address the immediate tactical situation. Anise, you said the system lords know about MacGyver. What's their likely response? 3 probable scenarios, Anise said, her tone shifting back to analytical precision. First, Ares will attempt to capture MacGyver to use as a host for himself or a trusted underlord. A Goa'uld with natural ancient gene access would be unstoppable, able to activate weapons, ships, and defenses that have been beyond their reach for millennia. Second, the system lords will recognize MacGyver as too dangerous to allow any single Goa'uld to possess and will attempt to eliminate him to maintain the current balance of power. Third, they will attack Earth directly, gambling that destroying the Tauri will eliminate the threat before it can be fully realized. Fantastic, Jack said. All our options are terrible. There is a fourth option, TLC said. MacGyver could be hidden. Taken to a world unknown to the Goa'uld where his presence cannot be detected. Absolutely not, Carter interjected. His genetic compatibility with ancient technology could be the edge we need against the Goa'uld. We'd be wasting the single most valuable asset we have. I'm sitting right here, MacGyver said mildly. And I'm a person, not an asset. Carter flushed. I didn't mean, sorry. But you have to understand, MacGyver, what you represent strategically. There are ancient outposts throughout the galaxy with technology sealed behind genetic locks. Weapons that could destroy Goa'uld motherships. Shield generators that could protect entire planets. Knowledge that might even lead us to Atlantis itself, the lost city of the ancients. With your gene expression, we could access all of it. Or accidentally activate something that kills us all, Daniel countered. The ancients weren't perfect. They created the replicators. Self-replicating machines that nearly wiped out the Asgard. They built time travel devices that could unravel causality. Just because MacGyver can activate their technology doesn't mean we should let him activate everything he finds. Agreed, MacGyver said firmly. I didn't ask for this genetic lottery win, and I'm not interested in becoming a key for every dangerous ancient device in the galaxy. But I'm also not going to hide while people are enslaved by the Goa'uld. There has to be a middle path. Anise smiled slightly, a distinctly Freya expression. Spoken like a true descendant of the ancients. They always sought balance and wisdom over power. The Takare have a proposal. Hammond's eyes narrowed. I'm listening. The Takare have been monitoring an ancient facility on a planet we call Thelos, Anise said. She produced a small holographic projector and activated it. A 3-dimensional star map appeared above the table, zooming to highlight a single planet in a distant system. It's hidden in a nebula that interferes with Goa'uld sensors. The facility has been sealed for millions of years, protected by genetic locks that no amount of force or technology can bypass. We believe it contains a database. Not just gate addresses, but detailed information on ancient sites throughout the galaxy, defensive technologies, and possibly medical knowledge that could help extract Goa'uld symbiotes from hosts without killing either. MacGyver leaned forward, studying the hologram. You want me to open it? We want you to access it safely, Anise corrected. With proper preparation, security, and the understanding that some knowledge is better left sealed. The Takare have been fighting the Goa'uld for 2,000 years. We've learned caution with ancient technology. But we've also learned that information is the most powerful weapon in this war. If that database contains what we believe it does, it could save billions of lives. Jack looked at Hammond. This smells like a trap, sir. The Takare want something from MacGyver, and they're wrapping it in altruism. The Takare want to defeat the Goa'uld, TLC said. As do we. Our goals align, even if our methods differ. I have fought beside the Takare. They are not without honor. But they're also not above using people as assets, Carter said, though her tone was more resigned than accusatory. Her dad's a Takare, she added for MacGyver's benefit. Jacob Carter, blended with the symbiote Selmac. I trust him completely, but the Takare as an organization, they play long games with other people's lives. Anise didn't deny it. We do what's necessary to win a war we've been losing for millennia. But in this case, our interests and yours are genuinely aligned. MacGyver has been revealed to the system lords. Hiding him is temporary at best, eventually, they'll find him. But if he can access ancient knowledge before they do, Earth gains defenses and weapons that could finally level the playing field. Or he accidentally activates an ancient doomsday device and wipes out the solar system, Daniel said. Let's not pretend ancient technology is uniformly helpful. They built the Dakra superweapon that can restructure matter across an entire planet. In the wrong hands, or activated incorrectly, it could sterilize worlds. Hammond's weathered face showed the weight of command, too many variables, too little time, and every choice carrying potentially catastrophic consequences. Dr. Jackson raises valid concerns. But Anise is also right that MacGyver is now a known target. Doing nothing isn't an option. He turned to MacGyver. This is ultimately your choice. You're a civilian consultant, not military personnel. I can't order you to risk your life accessing an ancient facility that might contain anything from medical miracles to apocalyptic weapons. But I can tell you that Earth needs every advantage we can get, and you represent an advantage we didn't even know we had until today. MacGyver thought about the ruins on P3X-797, about the pyramid pulsing with sealed knowledge, about the Goa'uld Khepesh ordering their deaths with casual cruelty. He thought about TLC's people enslaved for millennia and Daniel's passion for freeing them. He thought about the personal shield generator in Carter's lab, responding to harmonic frequencies, offering protection without violence. I'll go to Thelos, MacGyver said. But on conditions. First, I'm not activating anything without understanding what it does. No, flip the switch and hope scenarios. Second, if I determine something is too dangerous, we seal it back up and walk away, even if it could be tactically useful. Third, this doesn't make me Earth's ancient technology master key. I help when it makes sense, but I'm not spending my life as a walking door opener for every sealed facility in the galaxy. Fair terms, Hammond said. Anise? The Takare inclined her head. Acceptable. The Takare value wisdom as much as power. We would never ask you to activate technology recklessly. A pause, then Freya's gentler voice emerged. My father was killed by Goa'uld who used stolen ancient weapons they didn't understand. I would never wish that fate on others. Then we have an agreement, Hammond said. Colonel O'Neill, SG-1 will accompany MacGyver and Anise to Thelos. Major Carter, you'll provide technical support. Dr. Jackson, your expertise on ancient language and culture will be essential. TLC, security and tactical assessment. MacGyver, you're the key, literally, but the team keeps you alive and makes sure nothing catastrophic gets activated. Jack sighed. So basically a normal Tuesday for SG-1. When do we leave? 48 hours, Anise said. That gives us time to reach the Takare base where my ship is stationed and plan the approach. The nebula around Thelos makes navigation treacherous. We'll need precise calculations. And that gives the Goa'uld 48 hours to plan their own move, TLC observed. They will not sit idle knowing MacGyver's location. Let them come, Carter said with more confidence than MacGyver thought the situation warranted. SGC has defenses, and Earth has allies now. We're not the helpless civilization we were when this program started. The meeting adjourned with assignments and preparations. As people filed out, Daniel caught MacGyver's arm. Can we talk? In my office? Daniel's office was organized chaos, books in ancient languages stacked precariously, artifacts from a dozen worlds arranged on shelves, and photographs of archaeological sites that probably included several alien planets. He cleared a space on his desk and sat, gesturing for MacGyver to take the chair opposite. "I know what you're feeling right now," Daniel said quietly. "When I first learned about the Stargate, I thought it vindicated every theory I'd ever had about ancient astronauts and lost civilizations. I was right about everything, and it felt incredible. Then my wife was taken as a Goa'uld host, and suddenly being right didn't matter anymore. What mattered was saving people." MacGyver listened, hearing the pain under Daniel's words. "Finding out you have ancient genetics, that your whole life might have been influenced to bring you here, that's a lot to process," Daniel continued. "You're going to question every choice you've made, wonder if any of it was really you. But here's what I've learned, it doesn't matter. Your choices are still yours, even if opportunities were arranged. What you do with those choices defines who you are." "Thanks," MacGyver said, meaning it. "But I'm less worried about existential questions and more worried about becoming a target for every Goa'uld with delusions of godhood." Daniel smiled slightly. "That too. But you handled yourself well on P3X 797. You kept your principles and found solutions that didn't compromise who you are. That's rare in this job. Don't lose that, no matter how much pressure you're under to weaponize everything you touch." "I won't," MacGyver promised. "I didn't spend my career refusing to use guns just to start building ancient death rays because it's convenient." "Good." Daniel stood, extending his hand. "Welcome to the team, MacGyver. Officially. You're one of us now, whether you planned on it or not." MacGyver shook his hand, feeling the weight of that acceptance. SG-1 wasn't just a military unit, they were explorers, defenders, and the front line against tyranny most of Earth didn't know existed. And now he was part of that mission, carrying genetic legacy millions of years old and a Swiss army knife that suddenly felt very inadequate. But he'd faced impossible odds before with nothing but his wits and improvisation. The galaxy had just raised the stakes considerably. The Tok'are base was unlike anything MacGyver had imagined. Located deep underground on a planet designated P34-353J, the facility was grown rather than built, crystalline tunnels carved by living technology that responded to thought and need. The walls glowed with soft bioluminescence, and the air hummed with a frequency just below human hearing that made his teeth ache slightly. "The tunnel crystals are ancient technology, actually," Carter explained as SG-1 and Anise navigated the winding passages. "The Tok'are discovered the seeding devices millennia ago and have been using them ever since. You plant a crystal matrix with specific growth parameters, and it excavates and reinforces tunnels according to design. Completely organic, self-maintaining, and nearly impossible to detect from orbit." MacGyver ran his hand along the smooth wall, feeling faint vibrations. The crystal was alive in some sense, or at least responsive to its environment. Another example of ancient technology working with natural principles rather than against them. "What happens if the Goa'uld find this base?" "We collapse the tunnels and evacuate," Anise said simply. "The Tok'are never stay in one location long. We've lost 17 bases in the last century to system lord attacks. This one has been secure for 6 months, which means we're overdue for relocation." They emerged into a central chamber where dozens of Tok'are moved with purposeful efficiency. MacGyver could identify the blended individuals by the subtle neck implants and the occasional shift in demeanor as symbiote and host traded control. It was less jarring here than it had been watching Anise. These people had clearly been working together for years, the partnership so seamless that distinguishing between personalities became nearly impossible. A distinguished man with graying hair and kind eyes approached, and Carter's face lit up. "Dad!" Jacob Carter embraced his daughter, then his expression shifted subtly, older somehow, wiser, the symbiote Selmak taking partial control. "Samantha. It's good to see you." The voice carried that distinctive harmonic quality. "And you must be MacGyver." Anise tells us you carry the ancient gene naturally. That's a remarkable gift. Or a remarkable burden, MacGyver said, shaking the offered hand. I'm still deciding which. Selmak smiled, a gesture that looked like Jacob but carried the weight of centuries. Both, probably. The ancients rarely gave gifts without complications. Come, we have much to discuss before you attempt Thelos. The planning room featured a holographic display showing the target planet in intricate detail. Thelos was a small world wrapped in a purple nebula that pulsed with electromagnetic interference. The ancient facility was marked deep within a canyon system on the planet's surface. The nebula makes this location nearly impossible to find without precise coordinates, Jacob explained, his voice shifting back to his own as Selmak relinquished primary control. The Goa'uld have no record of this planet in their databases. We discovered it by accident 20 years ago during a scouting mission. We've sent 3 teams to investigate the facility since then. None could bypass the genetic locks. What exactly are we looking at? Jack asked, studying the hologram. Size, defenses, potential threats. Anise manipulated the display, zooming to show the ancient structure. It was massive, a building that descended into the planet's crust for at least half a mile, with architecture that suggested both research facility and fortress. The entrance is sealed by a genetic scanner. Beyond that, we detected multiple levels, power sources that have remained active for millions of years, and what appears to be a central database core. But we also detected defensive systems. The ancients protected this facility for a reason. Defensive systems like what? Daniel asked nervously. Ancient technology tends toward either completely benign or potentially apocalyptic, with very little middle ground. Unknown, Selmak admitted, the symbiote's voice carrying concern. Our scans couldn't penetrate the outer shielding. But given the facility's size and power requirements, we estimate defenses capable of repelling Goa'uld assaults. Possibly including automated weapons platforms, energy barriers, or security protocols that could be aggressive toward intruders. So MacGyver's genetic clearance might get us in the door, Carter summarized, but after that we're walking blind into a facility that's been sealed and defended for millions of years. What could possibly go wrong? TLC raised an eyebrow. Your sarcasm is noted, Major Carter. However, the tactical assessment is sound. We will be entering unknown territory with unknown defenses. I recommend maximum caution and immediate withdrawal protocols should hostile responses occur. MacGyver studied the hologram, noting the facility's architecture. The ancients built with purpose, every angle and proportion following mathematical principles that suggested function beyond aesthetics. If this is a database facility, it would have been designed for researchers, not soldiers. The defenses would be oriented toward keeping people out, not trapping them inside. There should be protocols for peaceful exit if we don't trigger hostile responses. That's optimistic, Jack said. In my experience, ancient facilities are about 50-50 on the peaceful research versus accidentally lethal scale. The Colonel has a point, Anise said. But MacGyver's genetic signature should identify him as authorized personnel. The facility's systems might recognize him as ancient descendant and grant access that would be denied to others. That's the theory, at least. Theories are great until someone gets disintegrated, Jack muttered. What's our extraction plan if this goes bad? Jacob highlighted the entrance area. The TOC RA will maintain a ship in orbit with transport capability. If you need emergency extraction, we can beam you out within 30 seconds of the signal. But the nebula's interference means we can't maintain transporter locks continuously. You'll be on your own inside the facility until you reach the entrance again. Standard SG mission parameters then, Carter said with forced cheerfulness. Go in blind, hope nothing kills us, extract whatever intelligence we can, try not to accidentally activate any doomsday devices. Just another day at the office. Daniel was studying the ancient text visible on the holographic representation of the facility's entrance. These symbols, they're similar to what we found on P3X 797. The language predates standard ancient script by several millennia. If this facility is as old as I think it is, it might contain information from before the ancients ascended. Original research from when they were still flesh and blood. Which makes it incredibly valuable and incredibly dangerous, MacGyver said. They would have been experimenting with technologies they didn't fully understand yet. This could be where they developed the Stargate network itself, or where they made mistakes they later tried to bury. Selmac's ancient consciousness colored Jacob's expression with something like respect. You think like they did. Cautious. Questioning. The Goa'uld would have charged in blindly, confident in their superiority. But you recognize humility in the face of unknown knowledge. That's why you might succeed where they would fail. When do we leave? MacGyver asked. Dawn, local time, Anise said. That gives you 8 hours to rest, review the mission parameters, and prepare equipment. I suggest you use them. Fellows is a full day's journey even in a Takare ship, and the facility itself could take hours to navigate safely. The team dispersed to prepare. MacGyver found himself in a small crystalline chamber that served as guest quarters, lying on a surprisingly comfortable cot while his mind raced through scenarios. He'd spent his career improvising solutions to immediate problems, defuse the bomb, stop the chemical weapon, save the hostages. But this was different. This was about unlocking knowledge that predated human civilization by millions of years, knowledge that could save worlds or destroy them depending on how it was used. A knock on the crystalline wall, somehow the living crystal transmitted the sound clearly, announced Daniel's arrival. Mind if I come in? Couldn't sleep either. Company's welcome, MacGyver said, sitting up. I keep running through what we might find tomorrow. Best case scenarios and worst case scenarios. Daniel sat on the floor, back against the wall. I've been thinking about the ancients themselves. We know they ascended, became beings of pure energy existing on a higher plane. But before that, they were people. Scientists, artists, parents, children. They made mistakes. They struggled with the same questions we do about power and responsibility. And then they left behind all their dangerous toys for the rest of us to find, MacGyver said. No instruction manuals, no warning labels. Just sealed facilities and genetic locks hoping someone responsible would eventually open them. Maybe that's the test, Daniel suggested. The genetic lock isn't just biology, it's selection for people who have the humility and wisdom to question what they find. The Goa'uld would never ask if they should activate something. They'd just do it and deal with consequences through force. But someone like you, he gestured at MacGyver's improvised equipment vest. You refuse to even carry a weapon because you believe violence should be a last resort. That's ancient philosophy. That's why you might be exactly who they wanted to find their legacy. Or I'm just genetically lucky and reading too much into it, MacGyver countered. Coincidence and pattern seeking. The human brain loves to find meaning in randomness. Maybe, Daniel acknowledged. But in my experience with ancient technology and the Stargate program, coincidences are usually something more. The universe has a way of putting the right people in the right places at the right times. You're here for a reason, MacGyver. What you do with that is up to you. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the bioluminescent walls pulsing gently. Eventually Daniel stood, stretching. Get some rest if you can. Tomorrow we're either making the discovery of a lifetime or accidentally triggering something that kills us all. Either way, we should be well rested. Your pep talks need work, MacGyver said, but he smiled. After Daniel left, MacGyver did try to sleep, but his mind kept returning to that ancient facility waiting in its nebula. A database containing millions of years of knowledge. Medical technology that could free Goa'uld hosts without killing them. Defensive systems that could protect Earth from system lord attacks. Or weapons that could crack planets. Or devices that could unravel time itself. He thought about his Swiss Army knife, sitting on the small table beside the cot. Such a simple tool. A dozen functions in a compact package, none of them designed to kill. It had served him well for decades, saving lives through creative application of basic principles. Tomorrow he'd be the key that opened a door to technology that made his knife look like a caveman's rock. The question was whether he had the wisdom to know which doors should stay closed. His hand found the knife in the dark, fingers tracing familiar contours. Whatever happened on Thelos, he'd face it the same way he'd faced every challenge in his career. With improvisation, principles, and the stubborn belief that there was always a solution that didn't require compromising who he was. The ancient gene in his DNA might be millions of years old, a gift or curse from beings who transcended physical existence. But his character was his own, built through choices and convictions no ascended being could influence. That would have to be enough. Eventually, exhaustion claimed him. His dreams were filled with crystalline pyramids and harmonic frequencies, with symbols that wrote themselves in light, and with the distant sensation of being watched by entities who existed beyond normal space and time. The ancients, perhaps, curious to see what their descendant would do with their legacy. Or possibly just his subconscious processing the impossibility of his situation through archetypal imagery. Either way, dawn came too quickly. And with it, the journey to Thelos began. The Takare ship cut through the purple nebula like a knife through silk, its hull shimmering with adaptive shielding that redistributed electromagnetic interference. MacGyver stood in a small observation area, watching swirling clouds of ionized gas stream past the viewport. Somewhere ahead, hidden in this stellar fog, waited the ancient facility. "We're approaching the coordinates," Anise announced from the cockpit. Her hands moved across crystalline controls that responded to thought as much as touch, more ancient-derived technology, modified by Takare ingenuity over millennia. Thelos should be visible within 2 minutes. Carter stood beside MacGyver, her scanner tracking the nebula's radiation patterns. "The interference here is incredible. Long-range sensors are completely useless, short-range is barely functional. The Goa'uld would never find this place by accident, and even if they did, navigating through this soup would be nearly impossible without precise coordinates." "Which begs the question," Jack said from where he leaned against the bulkhead, P-90 held with casual readiness, "how did the Takare find it?" "Blind luck and desperation," Jacob replied. He was piloting, his experienced hands, guided by Selmac's centuries of knowledge, keeping them on course through the turbulence. 20 years ago, we were fleeing a Goa'uld patrol. Jumped into this nebula hoping to lose them in the interference. Instead, we found Thelos. Pure accident. Or ancient intervention, Daniel suggested quietly. He was reviewing photographs of the facility's entrance, trying to decode the symbols. If they wanted the Takare to find this place, arrange for a fleeing ship to stumble across it exactly when needed. That's subtle enough to maintain their non-interference oath while still influencing events. "Can we please stop assuming glowing space ghosts are manipulating everything?" Jack said. "Sometimes a lucky break is just a lucky break." The nebula ahead thinned, and Thelos emerged. The planet was smaller than Earth, its surface a mottled mix of rust-red stone and dark gray basalt. Deep canyons carved the landscape like scars, and at the southern pole, a massive crater suggested ancient impact or possibly weapon damage. No atmosphere to speak of, the air was thin enough that they'd need breathing apparatus for extended surface time. "There," TLC said, pointing to a canyon system near the equator. "The facility entrance." Jacob brought the ship into a slow descent, navigating between canyon walls that rose thousands of feet on either side. MacGyver felt his stomach drop as they plunged into shadow, the nebula's purple light fading to darkness broken only by the ship's exterior illumination. The ancient facility appeared gradually, first as geometric patterns too precise to be natural, then as carved stone that flowed with mathematical perfection, finally as a massive entrance built into the canyon wall. The doors were easily 60 feet tall, covered in the constellation-like symbols MacGyver had come to recognize as ancient script. And at the center, carved in perfect detail, was a handprint. "The genetic scanner," Anise said, bringing the ship to rest on a level area 50 yards from the entrance. "We've attempted to bypass it 17 times over 20 years. Chemical analysis, energy manipulation, even tried to grow Takare tunnel crystals around it. Nothing worked. The doors remained sealed." MacGyver studied the entrance through the viewport. The handprint was sized for a human palm, positioned at chest height. Simple. Elegant. Impossible to fake without the correct genetic markers. What happened when you tried to force it? "The facility's defensive systems activated," Jacob said grimly. "Nothing overtly hostile, just a low-frequency energy pulse that disabled our equipment and caused severe disorientation. We lost 3 people to seizures before we pulled back. Since then, we've only observed from a distance. Friendly reminder that ancient technology sometimes kills people who touch it wrong," Jack said. "MacGyver, no pressure, but try not to trigger the brain-melting defense system when you put your hand on the alien door." "I'll do my best," MacGyver said dryly. They suited up in the ship's small cargo bay. The breathing apparatus was lightweight but sophisticated, Takare technology that recycled exhaled CO2 with near-perfect efficiency. MacGyver wore his tactical vest over the environmental suit, his Swiss Army knife secured in an exterior pocket. No weapons, as always, but his chemistry kit and improvisation tools were meticulously organized. Carter checked his equipment with professional thoroughness. "Suit integrity is good. Radio communications should work, though the facility might have shielding that blocks signals. Stay in visual contact with the team at all times. If anything feels wrong. Nausea, disorientation, unexplained fear, that could be the facility's defenses activating. Tell us immediately and step away from whatever you're doing." "Got it," MacGyver said. "Try not to accidentally trigger ancient death traps. Standard operating procedure." TLC hefted his staff weapon with practiced ease. "I will provide perimeter security while you attempt to access the entrance. Should Goa'uld arrive, we will have advance warning." "The nebula makes that unlikely," Anise said, "but not impossible. System Lord reconnaissance sometimes probes this sector. We should minimize our surface time." The cargo ramp lowered with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Thelos's thin atmosphere rushed in, cold, dry, tasting of minerals and ancient stone. The canyon walls rose like cathedral pillars on either side, their surfaces worn by eons of stellar wind and micrometeorite impacts. MacGyver's boots hit alien stone for the second time in his short Stargate career. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, giving his steps an odd bouncing quality. Above, the purple nebula swirled through Thelos's dark sky like aurora borealis frozen in permanent display. The ancient entrance dominated the canyon wall ahead, its geometric perfection somehow both welcoming and ominous. The handprint glowed faintly, not with internal light, but as if it reflected illumination that existed in a spectrum just beyond normal vision. "It's reacting to your presence," Carter breathed, her scanner chirping wildly. "The genetic scanner is already detecting ancient gene markers. MacGyver, your DNA is literally lighting up their technology just by being close." Daniel moved to the symbols surrounding the entrance, his gloved fingers hovering just above the carved stone. "These aren't warnings. They're greetings. Welcome, inheritor of our legacy." And this section says something like, "Knowledge awaits those with wisdom to seek it." It's an invitation. Or a really polite trap, Jack muttered, but he kept his P90 lowered. "MacGyver, your show. We've got your back." MacGyver approached the handprint slowly, studying it from every angle. The stone around it was seamless, no mechanisms visible, no seams or hinges. Whatever made these doors open was buried deep within the structure, probably controlled by technology he couldn't begin to understand. But the principle was clear, the ancients wanted someone with their genetic legacy to open this facility. Someone who carried their DNA across millions of years of evolution and survival. He pulled off his glove, exposing his hand to Thelos's thin, cold air. The handprint seemed to pulse in response, its faint glow intensifying. "Here goes nothing," MacGyver said, and pressed his palm against the ancient stone. The sensation was immediate and overwhelming. Not painful, but intrusive, something scanning through his hand, into his blood, reading the molecular structure of his DNA with intimate precision. He felt the ancient gene markers being identified, verified, cross-referenced against patterns millions of years old. The facility was learning him, understanding him, deciding if he was worthy. The stone beneath his palm grew warm. Harmonics built in the air, frequencies layering upon each other in complex chords that made his bones vibrate. The doors, 60 feet of solid ancient material that had been sealed for longer than human civilization had existed, began to move. They didn't slide or swing. They flowed, stone becoming liquid, reshaping itself, the massive entrance unfolding like a geometric flower blooming in time-lapse. Light spilled from within, soft, white, welcoming. The harmonics resolved into a single pure tone that felt less like sound and more like the universe exhaling. Then silence. The entrance stood open, revealing a corridor that stretched into darkness beyond the reach of the light. Ancient symbols glowed along the walls at regular intervals, providing illumination and possibly navigation. The air that emerged was fresh, recycled by systems that had operated flawlessly for millennia without maintenance. "It worked," Carter whispered, her voice carrying awe and scientific excitement. "After 20 years of trying, after 17 failed attempts, you just walked up and opened it like unlocking your front door." MacGyver pulled his hand back. His palm was unmarked, though he could still feel the ghost sensation of being scanned at a molecular level. "The ancients built this place for their descendants. I'm apparently one of them. The technology recognized that." "Then we should not keep it waiting," TLC said. "Ancient facilities have been known to close themselves after limited access windows. We should enter while the invitation remains open." Jack moved first, P90 raised, sweeping the corridor with tactical precision. "Daniel, MacGyver, Carter, stay behind me. TLC, rear guard. We move slow, we move careful, and if anything glows unexpectedly, everyone hits the deck." They crossed the threshold into the ancient facility. The corridor was precisely engineered, walls, floor, and ceiling meeting at perfect right angles, every surface smooth and carved from a material that looked like stone but felt wrong somehow. Too perfect. Too uniform. Probably some ancient composite that made modern ceramics look like mud bricks. The glowing symbols provided enough light to navigate. MacGyver recognized some of them from his brief exposure to ancient writing, mathematical constants, directional indicators, possibly safety warnings. But many were unfamiliar, part of a language developed by beings who'd achieved technology that seemed indistinguishable from magic. "I'm reading multiple power sources deeper in the facility," Carter reported, her scanner painting holographic displays in the air. "Main generators are at least half a mile down. Secondary systems throughout. Life support is active, air is actually breathable in here, temperature controlled to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. This place is fully operational after millions of years. The ancients built to last," Daniel murmured, photographing the symbols as they walked. "No planned obsolescence, no degradation. Their technology was designed to function indefinitely. Imagine what we could learn from that alone." The corridor opened into a larger chamber. Circular, perhaps 200 feet in diameter, with multiple passages leading off in different directions. At the center stood a holographic display, currently inactive, surrounded by a ring of raised platforms that looked designed for workstations. "Research hub," MacGyver guessed. "Central coordination area where multiple teams could share data and collaborate." As he stepped closer to the holographic projector, it activated. Light erupted from the device, coalescing into a three-dimensional star map that showed the galaxy in stunning detail. Thousands of points glowed, gate addresses, MacGyver realized. More than the SGC database contained. More than the Goa'uld had ever discovered. This was the complete Stargate network as the ancients had known it. My God, Carter breathed. That's every gate they ever built. There must be 10,000 addresses here. And information on each one, Daniel added, watching as data streams appeared beside highlighted planets. Planetary conditions, indigenous populations, ancient outposts, research facilities. This is their complete exploration database. Anise, who'd followed them inside, stared at the display with unconcealed hunger. With this information, the Takare could access ancient facilities throughout the galaxy. Technology that could finally give us an advantage against the system lords. Or technology that could backfire catastrophically, MacGyver cautioned. The ancients sealed this place for a reason. They didn't leave it open for anyone to access. The genetic lock means they wanted only specific people finding this. As if in response to his words, the holographic display shifted. The star map collapsed, replaced by a human figure, or what appeared to be human, though the proportions were slightly off, the features too perfect. An idealized form. The figure's eyes glowed with soft white light as it turned to face MacGyver directly. When it spoke, the voice was harmonious, layered with frequencies that suggested multiple speakers or possibly something beyond normal speech. And it spoke in ancient, but MacGyver understood every word, the genetic memory in his DNA translating automatically. Welcome, descendant. You have been long awaited. The entity paused, studying him with eyes that seemed to see through flesh to the genetic code beneath. This facility contains knowledge of great power. Medical advances. Defensive technologies. Understanding of the universe itself. But with knowledge comes responsibility. The ancients learned this truth through error and loss. We pass this wisdom to you. Some doors, once opened, cannot be closed again. Some knowledge, once possessed, changes the possessor irreversibly. The holographic ancient gestured, and the display behind it showed images, terrible images. Worlds burning. Technology run amok. Beings of pure energy locked in conflict that tore reality itself. The ancients' mistakes, laid bare. You carry our legacy in your blood, the entity continued. But you also carry your own wisdom, earned through your own choices. This facility will respond to your genetic markers and open its secrets. But we ask, before you access each level, each database, each sealed technology, ask yourself if the knowledge serves wisdom or merely serves power. The ancients failed this test too many times. We hope our descendants will learn from our mistakes. The hologram faded, leaving only the star map rotating slowly. The chamber fell silent except for the faint hum of ancient technology maintaining systems that had outlasted civilizations. Well, Jack said quietly. That was ominous. Anyone else get the distinct impression we're about to make decisions way above our pay grade? MacGyver stared at where the holographic ancient had stood. The warning was clear, this facility contained incredible power, and with it, incredible responsibility. The choice of what to access, what to use, what to leave sealed. That choice fell to him. Because he carried the gene. Because the ancients, for better or worse, had decided millions of years ago that their descendants should inherit their legacy and the burden of using it wisely. We proceed carefully, MacGyver said. We document everything. And we think very hard before we activate anything. Agreed? The team nodded. Somewhere deeper in the facility, in levels they hadn't yet explored, waited technologies that could save Earth or doom it. The only question was whether they had the wisdom to tell the difference. The star map continued to rotate, each glowing point representing a world accessible through the Stargate network. MacGyver watched as Carter frantically downloaded data to her portable storage device, her hands shaking slightly with the enormity of what they'd found. Daniel photographed everything, his academic excitement barely contained. Even Jack seemed stunned into momentary silence by the scope of ancient knowledge laid bare before them. There are schematics here, Carter said, her voice tight with controlled awe. Designs for ships, weapons, power generation systems. MacGyver, this console is responding to proximity, it's giving me access to technical databases because you're standing near it. Your genetic signature is literally unlocking information as we explore. Then we need to be selective about what we unlock, MacGyver said, moving away from the console. The holographic displays flickered and dimmed slightly in response. The ancient's warning was clear. Not everything here is meant to be used. TLC stood near one of the passages leading deeper into the facility, his staff weapon held ready. I sense we are not alone here. There is a presence. Not hostile, but observing. Watching to see what we will do. Automated security systems. Jack suggested, raising his P90 slightly. Or something more aware. The ancients achieved technology that blurred the line between artificial and organic intelligence, Anise said, studying a secondary console. This facility could have guardian protocols, artificial entities programmed to assess visitors and determine their worthiness. MacGyver's gene got us in the door, but that doesn't mean we have unrestricted access. As if confirming her words, a new hologram materialized, smaller than the idealized ancient, more compact and geometric. It resembled a crystalline construct, rotating slowly while data streams flowed through its translucent surfaces. Greetings, it said in ancient, though this voice was more mechanical, less layered with harmonics. I am the custodian of this facility. My function is to maintain systems, preserve knowledge, and evaluate those who seek access to restricted archives. You carry ancient genetic markers sufficient for basic access. However, deeper levels require demonstration of wisdom and intent. Daniel stepped forward, speaking slowly in phonetic ancient he'd learned from translations. We seek knowledge to defend our world against the Goa'uld. Parasitic beings who enslave humans and claim to be gods. The custodians form pulsed. The Goa'uld. Yes. A corruption of ancient genetic experiments conducted in our hubris. We sought to create beings who could survive in hostile environments through biological adaptation. Instead, we created parasites who perverted our gifts into tools of domination. This is recorded in our chronicles of failure. A reminder of wisdom ignored. Then you understand why we need help, Carter interjected. Earth is under threat. The system lords have ships, weapons, armies. We're barely surviving through luck and improvisation. The technology here could level the playing field, give us a chance to free billions of enslaved humans. Or it could be misused, the custodian countered. The ancients provided the Goa'uld with genetic advantages, believing they would use them for exploration and adaptation. Instead, they became tyrants. How do I know you would not repeat this pattern? Power given for defense often becomes power wielded for conquest. MacGyver felt the weight of that question. The custodian wasn't wrong, history was full of defensive technologies turned toward aggression, of protections becoming weapons. You can't know, he admitted. We can't prove our intentions because we haven't been tested yet. But I can tell you what I believe. That violence should be a last resort, that power without wisdom is dangerous, and that the ancients sealed this facility because they learned these lessons the hard way. I don't want to repeat their mistakes. The custodian rotated faster, processing. Your genetic markers indicate ancient descent. Your words indicate ancient philosophy. This is promising. However, I must assess not merely what you say, but what you do when faced with choice. I will present you with 3 sealed archives. Each contains technology of significant power. You will decide which, if any, to access. Your choices will determine what additional knowledge I make available. 3 new holographic displays materialized, each showing a sealed door with ancient script. The first archive, the custodian explained, contains medical technology. Devices that can heal injuries thought impossible, extend lifespans, and extract Goa'uld symbiotes from hosts without harm to either being. This knowledge could free millions from parasitic enslavement. However, it also contains genetic modification techniques that could be weaponized to create biological abominations. The ancients struggled with ethical boundaries in their medical research. Their mistakes caused suffering that lasted millennia. Daniel translated rapidly for those whose ancient wasn't fluent. The implications were immediate: technology that could save TLC's people and free Goa'uld hosts, but with the potential for catastrophic misuse. The second archive, the custodian continued, contains defensive technologies. Shield generators capable of protecting entire cities. Weapons that can disable ships without destroying them. Tactical systems designed to defend against overwhelming force. This knowledge could save Earth from system lord attacks. However, defensive technology becomes offensive when used against those weaker than yourself. The line between protection and aggression is thinner than most believe. Jack's expression was conflicted, the soldier in him recognizing the tactical value, the leader understanding the danger. We'd be foolish not to want that technology. But the custodian's right. Today's defense is tomorrow's weapon against someone else. The third archive, the custodian said, its form pulsing with what might have been anticipation or warning, contains fundamental knowledge. The mathematical principles underlying ancient technology. The physics that allow Stargates to function. Understanding of how they achieved ascension and transcended physical form. This knowledge provides no immediate tactical advantage. It offers only understanding. But understanding can lead anywhere, to wisdom or to hubris. The ancients possessed this knowledge and still made catastrophic mistakes. The three displays hovered, waiting for decision. You may access one archive, the custodian stated. Choose based on your values and judgment. Your choice will be recorded and will determine what further access I grant. Choose wisely. The consequences extend beyond this moment. Silence filled the chamber. MacGyver could feel everyone watching him. The decision was his, whether he wanted that responsibility or not. His genetic markers made him the gatekeeper to ancient knowledge, and the custodian was testing not just his words but his priorities. We need to discuss this, Jack said quietly. MacGyver, this isn't a decision one person should make alone. Agreed, Carter said. Each archive has benefits and risks. We should evaluate them together. They moved away from the custodian to confer privately, though MacGyver suspected the facility was monitoring them regardless. The medical technology could save countless lives, Daniel argued immediately. Free Goa'uld hosts, help the Jaffa transition away from symbiote dependency. That's not just tactical, it's humanitarian. It's also the most dangerous, Anise countered, her Takare perspective adding weight. Genetic modification technology in the wrong hands could create biological weapons. The Goa'uld would kill to possess that knowledge. If they learned we had it, they'd attack Earth with everything they have. The defensive tech is the smart tactical choice, Jack said, his military training evident. We protect Earth first. Everything else is secondary. If we can't survive Goa'uld attacks, the other knowledge doesn't matter. But defense technology becomes offense, MacGyver said, echoing the custodian's warning. Today we use it to protect Earth. Tomorrow someone decides to use it preemptively. Where's the line? TLC had been silent, but now he spoke. The third archive offers no immediate benefit. Yet the ancients valued understanding above all else. They ascended not through weapons or medicine, but through comprehension of universal principles. Perhaps wisdom is the greatest defense. Carter shook her head. With respect, TLC, understanding doesn't stop Goa'uld motherships. We need practical solutions, not philosophical insights. Do we? MacGyver asked quietly. The custodian is testing our priorities. It's asking what we value most, saving lives, protecting ourselves, or understanding the universe. Our choice reveals who we are and what we'll become if given more power. So what do you think we should choose? Daniel asked. MacGyver looked at the 3 sealed archives, thinking about everything that had led him here. His career spent solving problems through improvisation and applied physics. His refusal to use weapons even when threatened. His belief that there was always a non-violent solution if you were creative enough to find it. The medical technology, he said finally. It's the most dangerous, which means it requires the most wisdom. But it's also the only choice focused on healing rather than power. The ancients made mistakes because they pursued power, genetic experiments, weapons, conquest. They learned too late that their greatest achievements came from helping, not dominating. If we choose medical knowledge, we're saying we value lives over tactical advantages. That we're willing to accept risk in service of healing. That's idealistic, Jack said, though his tone wasn't dismissive. The Goa'uld won't care about our noble intentions when they're glassing our cities. No, MacGyver agreed. But if we start by choosing weapons and defenses, we become what we're fighting against. We become people who value power over compassion. The custodian is testing whether we've learned from ancient mistakes or whether we're destined to repeat them. Anise studied him with her dual nature evident, Anise calculating tactical implications while Freya's gentler consciousness considered ethical dimensions. The Takare have fought for 2,000 years. We've seen countless civilizations fall to the Goa'uld. And in all that time, we've never found technology that could safely extract symbiotes from hosts. If this archive contains that knowledge, she trailed off, but the hope in her voice was clear. My people have carried symbiotes for millennia, TLC said quietly. Many wish freedom but fear death from symbiote removal. Medical technology that could free them safely would end our dependence on the Goa'uld permanently. It would be true liberation, not just rebellion. Carter looked torn between her scientific training and her tactical awareness. The medical archive could revolutionize everything we know about biology and healing. But MacGyver's right, it's the choice that requires the most trust. Trust that we'll use it wisely. Trust that we won't become what we're fighting. Your choice. Jack asked MacGyver directly. Medical technology, MacGyver said. We heal. We free people. We risk the consequences because saving lives is worth the risk. That's what I believe the ancients would want us to choose. Not because it's safe or tactically sound, but because it's right. They returned to the custodian. The crystalline entity rotated, waiting. We choose the medical archive, MacGyver announced in Ancient. We choose to prioritize healing and freedom over power and protection. We accept the responsibility that comes with that knowledge. The custodian pulsed, processing. The chamber filled with harmonics. Not threatening, but complex, as if the facility itself was considering their choice. You have chosen compassion over power, the custodian said. Healing over defense. This aligns with ancient philosophy in our final years before ascension. When we finally understood that our greatest achievements were not weapons or ships, but the alleviation of suffering and the expansion of understanding. You have passed the first test. The first sealed door's hologram brightened, then dissolved. Beyond it, a new passage opened, leading deeper into the facility. The medical archive is accessible, the custodian continued. However, I will restrict certain sections until you demonstrate continued wisdom. You will find technologies for symbiote extraction, cellular regeneration, and genetic healing. The more dangerous applications remain sealed until I observe how you use what I provide. This is prudent caution based on ancient experience. Fair enough, MacGyver said. We didn't come here to take everything. We came for help against the Goa'uld. You're giving us what we need while protecting us from what could harm us. That's reasonable. One more thing, the custodian said. Your choice has been recorded and transmitted. Across the galaxy, other sealed ancient facilities have been notified that one bearing true genetic markers has been found and has chosen wisely. Doors that have been closed for millions of years may now open to you, MacGyver of Earth. But remember, each door is a test. Each choice reveals character. The ancients will be watching through their automated custodians, evaluating whether their descendants have finally learned the lessons we bought with suffering and mistakes. The weight of that statement pressed down on MacGyver like physical force. He'd just become the key to not just this facility, but potentially dozens or hundreds of others across the galaxy. Every choice he made would be observed, judged, recorded as evidence of humanity's worthiness to inherit ancient legacy. No pressure, Jack muttered. Indeed, TLC agreed with his characteristic understatement. Let's access the medical archive, Carter said, already moving toward the open passage. We came here for a reason. Let's make sure it was worth the risk. As they descended deeper into the ancient facility, MacGyver felt the genetic memory in his DNA resonating with the technology around him. The ancients had built this place for people like him, descendants who carried their genes and, hopefully, their wisdom. He'd chosen healing over power. Now he had to prove that choice was right. Even as somewhere above them, Goa'uld sensors detected unusual energy signatures from Thelos, and System Lord Ares began to take interest in a planet that shouldn't exist in his navigational charts. The medical archive was a cathedral of knowledge. Crystalline storage matrices lined walls that stretched upward into darkness, each one pulsing with data accumulated over millions of years. Holographic workstations dotted the chamber, designed for researchers who'd been dust for longer than human civilization had existed. And at the center, suspended in a stasis field that shimmered like heat haze, hung a device. It was elegant in its simplicity, a metallic band roughly 6 inches in diameter, covered in ancient symbols and set with crystals that glowed with soft blue light. Carter's scanner went wild as she approached it. The energy signature is incredible, she breathed. It's generating a quantum field that can interact with biological matter at the cellular level. MacGyver, I think this is it. The symbiote extraction device. The custodian's holographic form materialized beside them. You are correct, Major Carter. That is a Takare healing device, though your people have corrupted the term. The ancients created it to repair genetic damage and remove parasitic organisms without harming host or parasite. It requires significant training and ancient gene expression to operate safely. In unskilled hands, it can cause catastrophic cellular disruption. Can MacGyver use it? Daniel asked, glancing at their newest team member with a mixture of hope and concern. His genetic markers suggest natural aptitude, the custodian replied. However, aptitude is not mastery. I can provide instructional protocols, neural downloads that will teach basic operation. But true skill requires practice, and mistakes during practice can be lethal. You must decide if the risk is acceptable. TLC stepped forward, his expression resolute. I volunteer. If this device can free Jaffa from symbiote dependency, I will serve as test subject. My life is already forfeit should I fail. A Jaffa who has betrayed the Goa'uld has no future but rebellion or death. This risk is no greater than what I face daily. Absolutely not, Jack said immediately. TLC, you're not a guinea pig. We test this thing on, I don't know, something that isn't one of my team members. There is no time for caution, O'Neill, TLC replied calmly. My symbiote provides health and strength, but it also marks me as property of the Goa'uld. If this device can free me, it can free millions. The risk to one Jaffa is insignificant compared to the potential benefit to all. He's right, Anise said, her voice carrying Selmac's ancient wisdom. The Takare have been seeking this technology for 2 millennia. If MacGyver can learn to operate the healing device, we can begin freeing Goa'uld hosts immediately. The strategic implications are profound. We could destabilize the System Lord's power base by removing their hosts en masse. MacGyver studied the device, then looked at TLC. The Jaffa warrior stood with quiet dignity, offering himself as test subject without hesitation. It was the kind of selfless courage MacGyver had seen before in soldiers, but rarely with such calm acceptance of potential death. I won't use you as an experiment, MacGyver said. Not without understanding exactly what this device does and how to control it safely. Custodian, you mentioned neural downloads. How does that work? The holographic entity pulsed. I will transmit condensed information directly into your neural pathways. The process is painless but disorienting. You will experience memories that are not yours, ancient researchers using this device, their successes and failures. Essentially, I will provide you with centuries of expertise in compressed form. Your genetic compatibility makes this transfer possible. Others would suffer neural damage from the data density. Do it, MacGyver said. If I'm going to use ancient technology, I should understand it properly. The custodian extended a tendril of light that touched MacGyver's forehead. The sensation was bizarre, not painful, but profoundly strange, like having thoughts inserted directly into his mind that weren't his own but felt like memories he'd always possessed. He saw through ancient eyes, researchers in this very chamber, testing the healing device on volunteers. He felt their excitement at successes, their horror at early failures when cellular disruption killed subjects instantly. He experienced the gradual refinement of technique, the understanding that healing required not just genetic compatibility but empathy and intuition. The device responded to intent as much as conscious control, reading the operator's understanding of biology and desire to help rather than harm. The download ended. MacGyver staggered, caught by Carter before he could fall. His head throbbed with information that was simultaneously foreign and intimately familiar. He knew how to use the healing device now, not just mechanically, but instinctively, the way he knew how to improvise solutions from available materials. Are you okay? Daniel asked, concern evident. Yeah, MacGyver said, steadying himself. That was intense. I have memories of using this device. Hundreds of applications. I know what it feels like to extract a symbiote safely. I know the risks and the safeguards. He looked at TLC. I can do this. But you need to understand, the process will hurt. The symbiote is integrated with your immune system, your spine, your major organs. Removing it means severing those connections and repairing the damage simultaneously. You'll be conscious the entire time. I have endured Goa'uld torture, TLC said simply. I can endure pain for freedom. Jack looked torn between his role as commanding officer and his concern for his friend. TLC, once that symbiote's out, you'll need the TOC-RA drug, treponin, to survive. We're talking about permanent dependency on a substance we can barely manufacture. Are you sure? I am certain, TLC replied. I will trade one dependency for another, yes. But treponin does not mark me as Goa'uld property. It does not carry genetic memory of serving false gods. I will be truly free, O'Neill. That is worth any cost. MacGyver retrieved the healing device from its stasis field. The moment his fingers touched it, the crystals blazed with light, responding to his ancient gene with eager recognition. He could feel it interfacing with his nervous system, reading his intent, waiting for direction. Lie down, he told TLC, gesturing to one of the ancient examination tables. This will take about 10 minutes. Don't move, no matter how much it hurts. Movement during extraction could cause the device to sever nerves permanently. TLC lay on the table without hesitation. His hand went to the pouch in his abdomen where the symbiote rested, and for just a moment, MacGyver saw uncertainty flicker across the Jaffa's stoic features. This was a being he'd carried his entire life. Removing it was like removing part of himself. The rest of SG-1 gathered around. Jack standing at attention with his P-90 held ready for threats that couldn't be shot, Carter watching with scientific fascination mixed with worry, Daniel hovering anxiously with his hands clasped. Anise observed with the clinical detachment of someone who'd witnessed too much suffering to afford emotional investment, while her host Freya's gentler nature showed through in her concerned expression. MacGyver activated the healing device. Blue light enveloped TLC, and the Jaffa warrior's body went rigid. The device was scanning, mapping every connection between symbiote and host, identifying what to sever and what to repair. Through the ancient memories the custodian had given him, MacGyver understood the process with crystalline clarity. He guided the device with thought and intent, encouraging it to work gently, to minimize trauma. TLC's hand clenched into a fist. Sweat beaded on his forehead. But he made no sound. The symbiote in TLC's pouch began to move, agitated by the quantum field disrupting its connection to the host. MacGyver felt the device working, cellular bonds breaking, neural pathways being rerouted, immune functions being stimulated to compensate for the symbiote's absence. It was intricate work, like performing surgery at the molecular level while simultaneously teaching TLC's body how to survive without its parasitic partner. 5 minutes passed. TLC's breathing became labored. The symbiote thrashed in its pouch, fighting removal. Almost there, MacGyver said quietly, his concentration absolute. The hard part's coming. The spinal connection. This will hurt. TLC nodded fractionally. MacGyver guided the device to sever the final connection, where the symbiote interfaced with TLC's nervous system to provide enhanced healing and strength. Breaking that bond was like cutting through woven steel, each strand requiring precise attention to avoid permanent paralysis. TLC screamed. It was brief, choked off almost immediately by iron will, but the sound echoed through the ancient chamber with raw agony. Then it was done. The healing device lifted the symbiote from TLC's pouch, a writhing snake-like creature, mouth gaping with rows of teeth, completely harmless now that it was separated from its host. MacGyver directed the device to place it in a stasis container that the custodian provided. The symbiote would live, suspended in time, no longer enslaving but no longer enslaved either. TLC lay gasping on the examination table, his hand pressed to his abdomen where the symbiote had resided for over a century. The pouch was sealing itself, the ancient device having stimulated healing that would close the cavity within hours. "How do you feel?" Jack asked, his command voice rough with emotion he was trying to hide. TLC sat up slowly, testing his body's responses. His movements were tentative, uncertain. "Weak," he admitted. "The symbiote's strength is gone. But also," he paused, searching for words. "Free. For the first time in my life, I am only myself. No genetic memory of serving false gods. No foreign presence in my body. I am TLC. Simply TLC." Carter pulled out a case containing vials of tretinoin, the drug developed by the Jaffa resistance to replace symbiote dependency. "You'll need to start taking this immediately. Your immune system will crash within hours without either symbiote or tretinoin support." TLC accepted the first dose, injecting it without hesitation. A small price for freedom. Alarms suddenly blared through the facility. The custodian's form flickered with urgency. Proximity alert. Multiple Goa'uld vessels have entered the nebula. They are navigating toward Thelos despite the interference. Someone has provided them with precise coordinates. How is that possible? Anise demanded. This location is secret. Even among the Takare, only our High Council knows these coordinates. Betrayal or advanced sensors, Jack said grimly. Doesn't matter which. We need to extract, now. MacGyver, grab that healing device. Carter, download whatever data you can carry. Daniel, photo documentation of anything critical. Move, people. The custodian's voice carried what might have been concern. The Goa'uld are not approaching randomly. Their formation suggests they know exactly where this facility is located and what it contains. This was not discovery, this was planned assault. Someone told them you were coming here. MacGyver's blood ran cold. The beacon on P3X-797 had announced his genetic markers to the galaxy. Khepesh had reported to Ares. And now Ares was attacking the one ancient facility that could provide technology to free Goa'uld hosts permanently. They'd been expected. This was a trap. "Custodian, can this facility defend itself?" he asked. "Defensive systems are operational," the entity confirmed. However, they were designed to repel individual ships, not a coordinated fleet. Against sustained assault, the facility will eventually be breached. I can hold them for perhaps 2 hours before shields fail. That gives us time to extract with the healing device and data, Carter said. We run, we regroup, we abandon millions of enslaved people to the Goa'uld, TLC interrupted, his voice weak but firm. If this facility falls, the medical knowledge here will be destroyed or captured. No one else can access it, only MacGyver carries the genetic markers. Must defend this place or lose humanity's best chance at freedom from the Goa'uld forever. Jack's jaw clenched. The tactical assessment was obvious. They were 5 people plus 2 Takare against a Goa'uld fleet. The odds were impossible. The smart play was extraction and survival. But TLC was right. If this facility was destroyed, the knowledge it contained died with it. And MacGyver was the only person alive who could access ancient facilities on this scale. MacGyver looked around at the medical archive, at the healing device in his hands, at the data crystals containing procedures that could free billions from parasitic enslavement, at technology the ancients had created not for power but for compassion. The choice was impossible. And completely obvious. We defend the facility, MacGyver said. The ancients left this knowledge here for people like us. People who would choose healing over power, protection over retreat. We don't abandon that responsibility just because it's dangerous. Jack studied him for a long moment, then smiled, the grim smile of a soldier who just accepted suicide odds and decided to make them regret it. All right. Guess we're making a stand in an ancient research facility against overwhelming Goa'uld forces with limited ammunition and one guy who refuses to carry a gun. This is either the bravest or stupidest thing we've ever done. Why not both? Daniel suggested weakly. Indeed, TLC agreed, standing despite his weakened state. We will need defensive positions. The custodian must show us facility schematics and weapons systems. We have 2 hours to prepare for System Lord Ares and whatever forces he brings. The custodian pulsed. I will assist. The ancients would approve of your choice. You have prioritized wisdom and compassion over survival. That is the lesson we hoped our descendants would finally learn. Outside, in the purple nebula surrounding Thelos, Goa'uld Hatak motherships materialized from hyperspace. Death gliders launched from their bays in swarms. And at the command throne of the lead vessel, System Lord Ares smiled with cruel anticipation. The human with ancient genes had revealed himself. And now that human would either surrender and become a host, or die trying to protect knowledge that Ares would take by force. Either way, the System Lord would claim this facility and its secrets. Or so he believed. He had not accounted for the stubborn ingenuity of people who refused to let tyranny win, even when victory seemed mathematically impossible. And he certainly hadn't accounted for MacGyver. The defense of Thelos lasted 6 hours, not 2. MacGyver orchestrated it from the facility's central control room, his hands moving across ancient interfaces that responded to his genetic markers with eager precision. The custodian had unlocked defensive systems the ancients built for exactly this scenario. Energy shields that could redirect staff weapon blasts, automated drone weapons that targeted approaching vessels with mathematical accuracy, and structural reinforcements that turned the entire facility into a fortress carved from living stone. But it wasn't ancient technology alone that held the line. It was improvisation. When the Goa'uld attempted to beam troops directly into the facility, MacGyver recalibrated the internal sensor grid to emit a harmonic frequency that disrupted their transport rings. Jack called it the universe's most annoying doorbell. It worked. When death gliders strafed the canyon, Carter jury-rigged the facility's power conduits to create electromagnetic pulses that fried their navigation systems. Daniel translated ancient technical manuals in real time, finding activation protocols buried in poetic metaphors about harmony and discord. TLC, weakened but unbowed, coordinated defensive fire from automated weapons platforms with the tactical precision of someone who'd fought the Goa'uld for a century. And Anise used Takare communication networks to call for reinforcements, allies who owed the Takare favors, Jaffa rebels who'd heard that an ancient facility was being defended, and even the Asgard, who sent a single ship to observe this peculiar human standing against a system lord with nothing but a Swiss army knife and absolute refusal to surrender. Ares himself never set foot in the facility. The system lord watched from his hatak as his forces battered against defenses that shouldn't have held, as drones picked off death gliders with precision that spoke of technology millions of years advanced, as every attempt at breach was countered by defenders who improvised faster than he could adapt. Finally, as the 6th hour approached and Asgard sensors made it clear that Thor's people were taking interest, Ares withdrew. Not in defeat, system lords never admitted defeat, but in strategic reassessment. The human with ancient genes had proven resourceful. The facility was more heavily defended than intelligence suggested. And the Takare had rallied unexpected support. The prize was valuable, but not worth risking his fleet against growing opposition. Ares would return. With better intelligence. More ships. Different tactics. But for now, the defense had held. In the aftermath, as Takare's ships arrived to evacuate personnel and secure the facility, Hammond authorized full data retrieval. The healing device and medical archives were transported to Earth under maximum security. The custodian, satisfied that MacGyver and his team had demonstrated the wisdom and courage the ancients hoped for, unlocked additional archives, not weapons, but knowledge. Engineering principles. Mathematical frameworks. Understanding that would take Earth decades to fully comprehend but which began the process of genuine technological advancement rather than crude reverse engineering. TLC's successful symbiote extraction became proof of concept. Within weeks, Takare operatives were training with the healing device. Within months, the first Goa'uld hosts were being freed without casualties. The strategic implications rippled across the galaxy, system lords suddenly facing host rebellions, Jaffa witnessing that freedom from symbiotes was possible, and the Takare gaining the medical advantage they'd sought for 2 millennia. MacGyver returned to Earth carrying more than ancient technology. He carried responsibility. The custodian's final words echoed in his mind, other facilities had been notified of his existence. Doors that had been sealed for millions of years were waiting for him now, and each one would be another test of wisdom versus power, compassion versus conquest. General Hammond offered him permanent position as SGC's ancient technology specialist. MacGyver accepted, with conditions. He'd continue working with SG-1 when needed, but he wouldn't become a weapon. The Phoenix Foundation would remain his primary work, but the Stargate program would have his expertise whenever ancient puzzles required someone who thought in harmonics and improvisation rather than force. On his 4th week back, MacGyver stood in his workshop at the Phoenix Foundation, a half-completed water filtration prototype on his workbench, when his phone rang. It was Jack O'Neill. "Got a situation," the colonel said without preamble. SG-3 found an ancient outpost on P4X-639. Sealed door. Genetic scanner. You know the drill. Also, there might be Goa'uld in the area, and Daniel's already planning a 12-hour lecture on the archaeological significance, so pack patience along with your Swiss Army knife. MacGyver smiled, wiping machine oil from his hands. When do we leave? Gate activates in 6 hours. Try not to improvise any explosives on the way to Colorado. No promises, Jack. The line clicked off. MacGyver looked at his workbench, at the simple tools and improvised solutions that had defined his career. Then he looked at the small case containing a healing device that could free people from parasitic enslavement, technology millions of years old responding to genetic markers he'd carried unknowingly his entire life. The universe was vast. The Stargate network connected thousands of worlds. The ancients had left knowledge scattered across the galaxy, waiting for descendants wise enough to use it properly. And somehow, through coincidence or cosmic intervention, MacGyver had become the key to unlocking that legacy. He grabbed his field vest, the one with duct tape, zip ties, chemical compounds, and a Swiss Army knife that had proven more valuable than any weapon. 6 hours until gate activation. Plenty of time to reach Cheyenne Mountain. And beyond the gate, another ancient facility waited. Another test of wisdom. Another choice between power and compassion, between conquest and healing. MacGyver had made his choice on Thelos, standing against a system lord with nothing but improvisation and absolute conviction that defending knowledge was worth defending. He'd make the same choice again. However many times the galaxy asked the question, his answer would remain consistent. Heal rather than harm, understand rather than exploit, improvise solutions that preserved life rather than destroyed it. That was his legacy. Not the ancient gene in his DNA, but the choices he made with the opportunities that gene provided. And as he drove toward Cheyenne Mountain, toward the Stargate and the impossible adventures waiting beyond it, MacGyver understood something the ancients had learned through millions of years of mistakes. True power wasn't found in weapons or ships or technology that could reshape worlds. True power was found in wisdom. In choosing correctly when choosing was hard. In standing for principles even when pragmatism suggested compromise. The ancients had failed that test too many times before finally ascending and leaving their technology behind for better custodians. MacGyver intended to prove that their faith in their descendants, in humanity, wasn't misplaced. One improvised solution at a time. One ancient facility at a time. One choice at a time. The galaxy would keep testing him. The Goa'uld would keep hunting him. And ancient custodians across thousands of worlds would keep watching, evaluating whether this human with their genetic legacy and a Swiss Army knife truly understood the lessons written in their failures. MacGyver was ready. After all, he'd been preparing for this his entire life. Even if he hadn't known it until a phone call from a general about technology that defied conventional analysis brought him to Cheyenne Mountain and threw a ring to the stars. The Stargate awaited. And beyond it, a galaxy full of problems that needed solving. By someone who refused to use violence. Who improvised with chemistry and physics and harmonic resonance. Who carried ancient wisdom in his blood and hard-won principles in his character. The legend of the unarmed warrior was just beginning. And the galaxy, Goa'uld, Takare, Jaffa, Asgard, and countless others, would learn that sometimes the most powerful weapon was choosing not to carry one at all.